Chapter 1042. A horrifying energy surged over. However, Xiao Chen's body was like a mountain, not moving at all. With one finger, he forced back the incoming enemy. The cultivators in the distance sighed. In their opinion, the silver shark swordsman's sword strike was already terrifyingly strong. However, Xiao Chen calmly stretched out a finger and forced back the other party. The silver shark swordsman took 10 steps back in the air. He was somewhat shocked to discover that his law energy had increased 5-fold. Compared to the other party, his law energy was still slightly inferior. This one Xiren's law energy should be so pure. In reality, aside from Xiao Chen's materialized law energy, the assistance of his great perfection saber soul was also the reason for such an effect. The silver shark swordsman, who had just reached small perfection, was not strong enough before Xiao Chen. Otherwise, with Xiao Chen's current cultivation, he would not be able to injure the other party. To the cultivators of the Cloud Sea domain, these loose cultivators were extremely strong, far stronger than regular great grandmaster level martial swordsmen. However, along the way, Xiao Chen had killed many great grandmaster level martial swordsmen, and seen all sorts of great grandmaster level martial swordsmen. He had even fought with the blue-robed emperor. Aside from the old man who had yet to make a move, which made Xiao Chen feel some fear, these people before him were only SOSO. This scene not only shocked the silver shark swordsman, but also the other 3 loose cultivators. Heavy shock flashed in their eyes. Originally, they had been ferociously preparing to work together. However, now they actually hesitated for a moment. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. They still dared to hesitate before a huge battle. No wonder they could only flaunt their might in this insignificant place, gaining some ferocious reputation. If you are not going to attack, I will. Xiao Chen's figure flashed. Facing these 4 loose cultivators, the old fish devil, the iron sword maniac, Madame Flower, and the silver shark swordsman, instead of retreating, Xiao Chen turned into a saber light and charged at the weakest Madame Flower. Madame Flower revealed a startled expression. In a fluster, she opened her mouth and spat out a red poisonous fog. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and inhaled, directly swallowing this poisonous fog. After refining 100 drops of dragon marrow, his physical body had already reached the peak of rank 4 sage body. This level of corrosive poison mist could not cause any damage to his body at all. Madame Hua, who was in slight disbelief, was slightly taken aback. Her poisonous mist that could turn a person into red bones did not have any effect at all. While she was distracted, Xiao Chen's fist did not show any mercy. It landed on her body, causing her to vomit a mouthful of blood. She was severely injured. Let's go together. Ironsword Maniac was the first to react. The broadsword in his hand slashed out. The powerful explosive power behind it made this attack seem very frightening. Xiao Chen frowned slightly and did not clash head-on. His eyes lit up as he instantly found the weakness of this move. Then he turned around and materialized his flawless saber Dao to its limits. Crisp saber images filled the air as he turned around and swung his saber. The sword body trembled, instantly dispelling the berserk power. The old fish devil charged over with his fishing rod. The silver shark swordsman gritted his teeth and charged over again. Madame Hua's figure was ethereal as she flew around, continuously attacking Xiao Chen. The 4 worked together to surround and attack Xiao Chen. However, they did not feel relaxed at all. Saber hums filled the air, ringing endlessly like the most beautiful zither music in the world. Xiao Chen, who was surrounded, used his body as a saber, dealing with every move, firmly suppressing the 4. Xiao Chen could not be bothered to continue fighting. His gaze turned cold, and a bright moon soared into the sky behind him. The moon was like fire, burning endlessly. The joys and sorrows of partings, lofty aspirations, hot-bloodedness, all are in my palm. 1,000-year flame, inextinguishable, only I am undefeatable. Xiao Chen, who held the upper hand, suddenly unleashed his aura. A bright moon leaped out from behind him and hung high in the air, looking like a blazing flame. The bright moon in the sky was like a river of time. Many different Xiao Chens leaped out of the river. Some were sad, some were unruly, some were as calm as autumn water. Xiao Chen sent out the same palm strike as Xiao Chen under the moon. The 4 great loose cultivators felt an unparalleled force from the palm strike. Their internal organs instantly ruptured. They vomited a mouthful of blood and flew back 5 kilometers. Then they fell into the water and fainted. What kind of palm strike was this? It spoke of joy and sorrow, of partings and reunions, of lofty aspirations, of hot-bloodedness. It was as satisfying as strong wine, as fiery as inextinguishable hot-bloodedness. With one palm strike, the 4 great loose cultivators of the Cloud Sea domain flew back 1 kilometer. Their fates unknown. Who in the younger generation could have such elegance? Who exactly was one Xiren? With such startling strength, he should have been famous in the entire heavenly starry ocean long ago. Why had no one heard of this name before? This was a mysterious person, an unresolvable question. All the cultivators who saw this scene wondered who exactly he was. Some of the more knowledgeable cultivators had heard of the flawless saber Dao before. They guessed in their hearts, but that person was already a great grandmaster level martial sage long ago. He could not be compared to Wen Xiren at all. Xianyuan Zhantian, who had already retreated far away, felt depressed. He revealed a bitter smile on his face. Some people really could not be used as opponents. Otherwise, it would be a shadow in one's heart for life. Of the 6 great loose cultivators, Xianyuan Zhantian had retreated, and the other 4 had fainted. Now only Gao Yangyu, who had not made a move yet, remained. After seeing Xiao Chen's strong strength, if nothing unexpected happened, this divine bow would end up in Xiao Chen's hands. You are so strong at such a young age. You are ridiculously strong. If not for this treasure mountain and my fortuitous encounter, you might have had a chance today. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Gao Yangyu did not show any worry when facing the strong Xiao Chen. He seemed very confident and in control. What's wrong? You don't believe me? Gao Yangyu smiled faintly and no longer suppressed his strength. He took a gentle step forward in the air. With this step, the winds and clouds changed color. The winds blew, and the clouds moved in all directions. The winds and clouds swallowed up a great scene. When Gao Yangyu raised his foot, he stirred up the winds and clouds. This was the mark of the blue-robed emperor. Immediately, a horrifying aura spread out from Gao Yangyu's body, making it hard for others to breathe. Blue-robed emperor. Gao Yangyu broke through to the blue-robed emperor realm. When Xiren is finished this time. Unexpectedly, Gao Yangyu found a 10,000-year-old spirit herb in the treasure mountain and broke through the bottleneck of great grandmaster level martial sage, becoming a major character that can stir up the winds and clouds. No wonder he is so confident. He actually reached the blue-robed emperor realm. Even if he enters and exits the blue-robed emperor realm, he would be able to suppress Wen Xiren with such strength. The difference in cultivation is too great. If Wen Xiren were a great grandmaster level martial sage, he might have a chance. Now he has no chance at all. The situation suddenly changed. Gao Yangyu, who had not made a move yet, actually reached the blue-robed emperor realm. From now on, there would be another major character in the Cloud Sea domain. If Gao Yangyu obtained the divine bow, he might even be able to unify the Cloud Sea domain in a few years. How unfortunate. This fellow took advantage of this opening. The 8 city lords would not have expected the Emperor Yi Shooting Sun Bao to really appear in the treasure mountain. On the surface of the sea, Mo Chun, who had been very confident in Xiao Chun, could not help but reveal a worried expression. Why can't I be stronger? If I were stronger, I would be able to help him. Xiao Chun now understood why Xianyuan Zhantian warned him to be careful of this person. Gao Yangyu was actually someone who had just entered the blue-robed emperor realm, and could stir up the winds and clouds. Gao Yangyu could tell that Xiao Chen's origins were not simple. He said calmly, "You do not belong to the Cloud Sea domain. Hand over the Emperor Yi Shooting Sun Bao, and I will not make things difficult for you." Xiao Chun was someone who had just entered the blue-robed emperor, yet he dared to speak such nonsense before him. This was simply too presumptuous. After this matter, Xiao Chen's identity would be completely exposed. He would no longer be able to remain in the Cloud Sea domain. Xiao Chen glanced at Mo Chun in the distance and sighed to himself, "We will meet again if we are fated." When Xiao Chen turned his head back, his expression turned cold. He said in a cold voice, "I really want to know how you are going to make things difficult for me. What right do you have to make things difficult for me? Just based on your half-baked blue-robed emperor cultivation? Xiao Chen shouted and waved his hand. The many peak spirit veins in his universe ring turned into roaming dragons and flew out. Crystalline spiritual rain fell from the sky. Splash, splash, splash. As the rainwater hit the water, it tinkled endlessly. These are peak spirit veins. Someone exclaimed softly, feeling it strange. How could Wuxian have so many peak spirit veins? Xiao Chen took out a total of 10 peak spirit veins. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed them all. The spiritual rain vanished, and a blazing sun-like light came from Xiao Chen's body. It was as dazzling and piercing as the sun. Light and heat came from his body, directly vaporizing the seawater below. Mist rose into the air, making it hard for people to see what was happening inside. They could only feel a terrifying energy fluctuation coming from within. Gao Yongyu's face sank, and his eyelids twitched for some reason. He had a bad feeling. Gao Yongyu felt anxious and wanted to make a move. However, he could not see anything in this mist, so he did not dare to act rashly. This situation did not last for long. With the continuous and undulating dragon roars, the mist dissipated with a loud bang. 10,000 dragons danced behind Xiao Chen, looking ferocious. The ferocious dragon roars caused the seawater to churn. Huge waves rose up and down endlessly. Among the dragons, Xiao Chen's attire changed. He now wore the azure Neptune headscarf on his forehead and the clear wind robes, which equaled a Peak King grade secret treasure, infused with the Blue Dragon King's insignia. At this moment, the Blue Dragon King returned to its peak, rising from the ashes and advancing further. 10,000 dragons soared. What kind of grand scene was this? The cultivators of the Cloud Sea domain gaped. They had never seen this scene before in their lives. Their minds paused for a moment. Shock that came from the bottom of their hearts reverberated in their minds for a long time. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dragon-shaped laws entered Xiao Chen's body. With each law that entered, Xiao Chen could feel his strength increase significantly. When all 10,000 laws entered his body, Xiao Chen experienced an unprecedented strength. With a wave of his hand, he could split mountains. The law energy surged endlessly. He could execute several killing moves that he could only execute once or twice in the past as he pleased without having to worry about exhausting his law energy. A hazy scene appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. He saw a ravine that connected heaven and earth. After crossing the other shore, he could ascend to the Great Tao and knock on the Emperor's door. The chasm between heaven and earth. The chasm between great Grandmaster level martial sages and Emperor Wu that Elder Qin spoke of. He finally saw it with his own eyes. It turned out that the scene on the other shore was so glorious. Now that Xiao Chen had returned to his peak, the blue-robed emperor was within reach. He could start constructing the bridge to heaven at any time. Chapter 1043. Shock flashed in Gao Yongyu's eyes. When he saw Xiao Chen's current attire, he paled somewhat as he exclaimed, "You are not Wuxian. You are the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen that the Thunder King personally appointed." At this moment, the mystery that troubled everyone, who exactly Wuxian was finally revealed. Long ago, when Xiao Chen used the flawless saber Dao, someone had already guessed that Wuxian was an alias, and that his true identity was the Blue Dragon King. However, at that time, Xiao Chen was only an inferior grade martial sage. No one could connect him to the Blue Dragon King. At this moment, Xiao Chen's cultivation had returned to its peak. He had changed into the clear wind robes with the Blue Dragon King's insignia and the iconic Neptune headscarf. Who would not recognize him now? During the king conferral ceremony, Xiao Chen had defeated the outstanding talents everywhere, even the famous Fu Hongyao of Zodiac Hall, causing him to flee while covering his face. Who in the world did not know the Blue Dragon King? Even in the distant heavenly starry ocean. Even if they had not seen his portrait, they would have heard of his name. The descendant of the Qing Emperor, the new generation Blue Dragon King, the peak of the Kunlun continent's younger generation, the white-robed Xiao Chen. Mo Chen was somewhat stunned. Mo Chen was slightly stunned, and a bitter smile appeared on her lips. He had already guessed that Xiao Chen had a great background. However, he had not expected it to be this great. It was so great that it completely surpassed his expectations, far surpassed his imagination. The 9 Cauldron Merchant Association's Mu Qinghan was dumbfounded. To think that he chased away such a legendary character like the Blue Dragon King. No wonder. No wonder he dared to kill people in the City Lord's mansion. The Blue Dragon King even dared to cut the divine Sun Diwuk in half. Why would he care about a few descendants of the blue-robed emperor? Right now, Neptune's old subordinates are searching the world for him, wanting him to hand over Neptune's crown. They definitely would not expect Xiaochen to be in our insignificant Cloud Sea domain. There's going to be a good show to watch. Although Gao Yangyu is the blue-robed emperor, he has only just become a blue-robed emperor. Against a peerless genius like Xiaochen, the chances of him winning are now 50-50. There is still a chance. After all, it is the blue-robed emperor. It will be difficult for Xiaochen to defeat Gao Yangyu. Xiaochen had recovered his strength, and his identity was exposed. The surrounding cultivators all went into an uproar. No one had expected this. No one had expected the answer to be so shocking. When Xiren was the Blue Dragon King, Xiaochen, such a legendary character, Gao Yangyu's expression turned sullen. The Emperor Yi Shooting Sun Bao concerned whether he could unify the Cloud Sea domain or not. Even if the other party was the Blue Dragon King, he had to fight for it. There is a huge difference between a blue-robed emperor and a great grandmaster-level martial sage. Without stepping into the realm of the blue-robed emperor, you will never understand how strong the blue-robed emperor is. Xiaochen, hand over the divine bow. I am willing to give you all my gains from this trip to the treasure mountain. Gao Yangyu's stance was unyielding, but his words implied that he was making a significant concession. Xiaochen said coldly, blue-robed emperors are also divided into different levels. You are just a blue-robed emperor who has just started building bridges and has not even reached small perfection. Do you think I care about you? How arrogant. Today, even if you are the Blue Dragon King, I will make you fall here. Meteor punch. Gao Yangyu snorted coldly and stopped speaking. He took a step forward and stirred up winds and clouds. Then he punched with a boundless aura at Xiaochen. Gao Yangyu's fist contained the might of a meteor falling from the sky. His entire body turned into a blazing flame. When he took a step forward, it seemed like he could even pierce through the barrier of the sky. The explosive energy contained in the flames made even the cultivators 10 kilometers away feel fear. Is this the full power strike of the blue-robed emperor? How horrifying. I probably cannot even block half a punch. When several people saw Gao Yangyu's full power strike stirring up winds and clouds, wanting to pierce through the sky, they all felt fear in their hearts. Xiaochen's expression remained calm. The blue-robed emperor's strike was indeed horrifying. However, Xiaochen's law energy had already taken form. Every move of his could draw out vast energy. How could he feel fear? Your punch contains the will to pierce through the sky, wanting to pierce through the barrier of the sky. I have a punch as well. I hate the sky for being too low. Not enough for me to spread my wings and soar. Xiaochen spread his arms and faced Gao Yangyu's punch with a startling aura. He did not hesitate to clash with it. A huge shadow shone down. The Kurenpeng spread its wings and soared for 5,000 kilometers, hating the sky for being too low. The two fists clashed, and startling energy surged out in all directions like the tide. The winds and clouds moved and the sky changed color. Xiaochen, who was in the air, did not take a step back. Instead, he knocked Gao Yangyu back. Even the blue-robed emperor was knocked back by this punch. Xiaochen could not help but feel proud. He smiled and said, "Is this the difference between heaven and earth that you were talking about? You are only SOSO. Receive another punch from me." Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, Eternal Myth. A golden light encased Xiaochen, and an indomitable deity appeared behind him. This deity looked exactly like Xiaochen, solemn and dignified, exuding a supreme might. Sagely songs resounded in the surroundings, praising Xiaochen. Xiaochen's legend resounded in the air. An epic scene appeared in all directions. Who was the legend? Not the distant deities, not the ancient sages. Instead, it was the nearby Xiaochen, who carried 10,000 dragons and soared, eternal and inextinguishable. Bang! When the divine might gathered, The illusory deity behind Xiaochen suddenly froze the instant he punched. It was like it was real as it punched together with Xiaochen. When a deity made his move, a huge fist arrived in an instant. The great martial technique that Gao Yongyu had condensed and the momentum he gathered was scattered. With one punch, Gao Yongyu vomited blood and flew back. There was no trace of the blue-robed emperor's might, no trace of the demeanor that an expert like the blue-robed emperor should have. Gao Yongyu was beaten into a sorry state by a great grandmaster-level martial sage. Dusk of deities. Xiaochen's expression remained calm. He did not feel complacent at all. He had to beat the blue-robed emperor to death in one go. Otherwise, when the blue-robed emperor caught his breath, he would not be able to avoid a fierce battle. The setting sun looked like blood, and dusk arrived. The legend came to an end, and a dirge resounded. Scarlet meteors tore through the sky, and it looked like a hazy rain of blood. The aura of the apocalypse spread in all directions. Everyone felt a sense of sorrow. It was like a civilization was withering before their eyes. Xiaochen had studied this dusk of deities several times. Furthermore, he had personally seen the mysterious phenomenon of Emperor Forsaken's clone falling. He had already comprehended most of it. Using the scene of the apocalypse to bring out the state of the end was the essence of this punch. Punch after punch, the legend followed the apocalypse. Xiaochen beat Gao Yongyu until he could not even respond. The momentum that he had just gathered scattered again. His complexion paled, and blood flowed out of his mouth continuously. Gao Yongyu moved his hands, and a horrifying aura flowed out. A surging flame appeared on his body. Trying to execute a profound martial technique, to put your life on the line? It would be strange if I gave you the chance. Die. Xiaochen pressed on, not giving his opponent any chance to turn the situation around. A strand of divine light entered his body as he executed the myriad heaven divine fist, deities descending. Xiaochen's punch increased his combat prowess tenfold. A mist of blood soared into the air. Xiaochen's punch directly smashed Gao Yongyu's corpse into nothingness. 3 punches. With just 3 punches, Xiaochen killed a person who had stepped into the blue-robed emperor realm. The entire place fell silent. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. As they looked at the calm Xiaochen in the air, fear flashed on their faces. There was no falsehood in his fame. The Blue Dragon King truly lived up to his reputation. When everyone looked around, no one else appeared. The 6 great loose cultivators were either dead, injured, or retreated. As long as the blue-robed emperor did not appear, no one could compete with Xiaochen. Blue Dragon King, we the 8 city lords of the Cloud Sea domain. Thank you for your generous gift. As the saying goes, it is impolite not to reciprocate. We the 8 city lords also have a gift. Keep it well. Just when everyone thought that no one could compete with Xiaochen for the Emperor Yi shooting Sun Bao, 8 figures that should not appear suddenly leaped out of the crowd. 8 figures that should never have appeared suddenly leaped out from the crowd. The 8 quasi-emperors had actually appeared at the same time. The moment they appeared, they did not say anything. Without hesitation, they each sent out a killing move at Xiaochen, who was in the air. Resplendent light filled the sky. 8 attacks of different colors dyed the sky like a canvas, filling it with a pleasing beauty. However, this beautiful mysterious phenomenon was accompanied by boundless killing intent. Everyone gaped. Was there still a way out of this? Was the Cloud Sea domain really going to become the Blue Dragon King's burial ground? The 8 attacks contained the 8 different daos of the 8 great blue-robed emperors. When they attacked at the same time, tiny cracks appeared in the stable space of the Kunlun realm. Fortunately, Xiaochen was used to seeing all sorts of life or death situations. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been frightened silly by such a formation. They would not even be able to retaliate before getting blasted into mush. At the critical moment, Xiaochen reacted quickly. 2 motes of light appeared in his eyes. 2 flames, one yin and one yang, surged out and chased each other, forming a Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Yin-yang, the 8 trigrams, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared around the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. They materialized a scene of primal chaos, condensing space and forming a small world out of nowhere. When the 8 killing moves landed on the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram, Xiaochen's mind trembled. Blood leaked out of a corner of his lips as he took 8 steps back. With each step, space trembled 8 times, trembling endlessly. The calm seawater below became like a mirror, cracks appearing in it and shattering. Boom! The Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram lasted for a moment before shattering. However, it managed to block for a moment, significantly reducing the might of the 8 killing moves. Xiaochen did not move from his original spot. His fists danced, and 10,000 dragons surged in his body. Every move could stir up the wind and clouds, dealing with the moves as they came. After 2 or 3 breaths, Xiaochen dealt with these startling attacks with their overwhelming momentum. A cool breeze blew, and the seawater surged. Xiaochen's long hair draped over his shoulders as he hovered in the air. Even when the 8 blue-robed emperors appeared at the same time, it was hard to find any fluctuations on his face. He blocked it. Far away, the people in the Cloud Sea domain, who had already hidden 10 kilometers away, revealed incredulous expressions when they saw Xiaochen standing in the air. The 8 blue-robed emperors had ruled the Cloud Sea domain for many years. All of them were very strong. They were not like the half-baked emperor Wu like Gao Yangyu. All of them had reached small perfection of the blue-robed emperor. However, even with 8 small perfection Emperor Wu attacking together, their might overwhelming and space-shattering, Xiaochen still managed to block them. Everyone's gifts are really big. Xiaochen snorted coldly as he looked at the 8 city lords standing shoulder to shoulder in front, their faces filled with shock. The descendants of the 8 of us are not as big as your gifts. Wang Zhan's expression turned sullen. He had not expected that he would not be able to kill Xiaochen. Suddenly he looked around and saw Emochin standing in the distance. Chapter 1044. An uncontrollable murderous intent flashed in Wang Zhan's eyes as he said coldly, "Bitch, if not for you, my son would not have died." Wang Zhan's figure flashed, and the winds and clouds changed. He arrived before Emochin, and threw a palm strike. Under the encirclement of his aura, Emochin could not even move. It looked like Emochin would be smashed to death. Bang! An azure figure descended from the sky and glided over, shielding Emochin. Then he threw a punch and blocked the palm strike for Emochin. The son of the blue-robed emperor actually worked together to bully a girl. Your son only has himself to blame. His death is a worthy one. Wang Zhan could not kill Emochin with one palm strike. He could not help but feel enraged. No one in the Cloud Sea domain can stop me if I want to kill someone. Dang. 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 After pulling Emochin behind him, Xiaochen did not say a word. He did not move at all, just like an old tree. As his fists danced, he blocked all of Wang Zhan's attacks. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged more than 100 moves. Wang Zhan was surprised to discover that Xiaochen's strength was only slightly inferior to his, a small perfection blue-robed emperor's. Xiaochen's physical body was even stronger than Wang Zhan's. He did not show any fear when clashing head-on with Wang Zhan. His strong physical body could make up for the difference in strength. Horrifying waves resounded in the surroundings, and space trembled endlessly. However, the area behind Xiaochen remained calm and peaceful. No matter how strong the shock waves outside were, the place where Emochin stood was always peaceful and tranquil. Blood-killing technique, fist-breaking the 9 heavens. After another 100 moves, Wang Zhan lost his patience and directly executed his profound martial technique. Instantly, the sky behind Wang Zhan turned scarlet. An aura of massacre spread everywhere. A dense blood mist nearly turned into liquid, forming an extremely horrifying scene. Blood-killing fist. Now, Xiaochen can only protect himself. This is Wang Zhan's famous martial skill. Back then, he relied on this punch to defeat the old city lord of Shattered Cloud City with a single punch. That was how he became the new city lord. However, Xiaochen is terrifying enough. He is still a fine line away from the blue-robed emperor. Facing the blue-robed emperor's Wang Zhan, not only can he protect himself, but he can also protect a person for such a long time. The terrifying phenomenon caused by Wang Zhan's punch immediately attracted the attention of countless people. Xiaochen punched out, and a blood mist filled the air, pouring into his fist. Before the fist light arrived, it already pushed back space. Even the distance between him and Xiaochen slowly widened. Xiaochen was startled. When the blue-robed emperor executed a profound martial technique, its might was indeed too horrifying. At this moment, Xiaochen could no longer hold back. With a flip of his hand, Xiaochen drew the lunar shadow saber. The bright moon, peach blossoms, summer, falling leaves, white snow, lightning, blue dragon, and many other mysterious phenomena flew out from his body the instant he grasped the saber hilt. The bright moon could be perfect and flawless. The peach blossoms could last for 50 kilometers. The blazing summer sun could burn the land for 500 kilometers. The merciless autumn wind could sweep the world. The boundless winter snow could freeze the land for thousands of kilometers. And the blue dragon could soar into the sky. All these mysterious phenomena were grand and glorious. One kind of glory could illuminate one's entire life. I have thousands of kinds of glory condensed into one saber. That instant is eternity. A saber light flashed, and the instant of glory appeared as Xiaochen chopped out. They were both profound martial techniques. However, Xiaochen's profound martial technique was the strongest killing move that he comprehended himself. Wang Zhan, on the other hand, was merely copying his ancestors, even though his cultivation was much higher. Naturally, there was no need to say who was stronger and who was weaker. When the strong clashed, Wang Zhan's famous martial technique lasted for only a moment before crumbling. The glory that belonged to Xiaochen seemed eternal. A horrifying wound appeared on Wang Zhan's chest. Several of his ribs were broken. This saber strike knocked him back in a sorry state. The other city lords were greatly startled and quickly flew over to catch him. Bang! Xiaochen sheathed his saber. The land behind him remained as peaceful as before. Ao Jiao, there are still 7 blue-robed emperors left. What are my chances of victory if I use Neptune's crown? After all, you did not comprehend Neptune's crown on your own. If the 7 blue-robed emperors make a move at the same time, they will be able to shatter the domain. It will not be of much use. That is to say, I have no chance of victory. More or less. However, if you want to leave now, no one can stop you. I understand. After a quick conversation with Ao Jiao, Xiaochen looked at the various city lords in the air, and felt that it was unfortunate. Originally, he had planned to deal with them one by one after he recovered his strength. Unexpectedly, they all came at him at the same time. That's fine. Since they all came, I'll just kill them all. If we do not eliminate this brat, we will definitely be the ones to die in the future. The 8 blue-robed emperors snorted coldly and attacked at the same time. This time, they did not just send out a simple killing move. Instead, they surrounded Xiaochen, intending to kill him. The cultivators in the distance all revealed expressions of pity. Unfortunately, Xiaochen was a powerful, outstanding talent, a hero of his generation, and a startling talent. Yet these older generation characters ignored their status and worked together to kill him. Even if Xiaochen had many magic skills, he would still have to die today. No one expected such an outcome. Mo Chun, who was behind Xiaochen, was so anxious that she started crying. She pushed Xiaochen away and said, "Just go. Don't worry about me. I know you can leave." You think you can leave? No one can save the 2 of you today. There is no way for you to survive. The 8 blue-robed emperors roared in unison, shaking the sky. Xiaochen smiled faintly and said, "Is that so? However, I have a saber that is even higher than an emperor's. It can break the sky and chop down the moon." An azure-colored medallion appeared on Xiaochen's fingertip. This medallion contained a saber light that the Qing emperor left behind 10,000 years ago. With a thought, Xiaochen instantly released the saber light in the blue dragon medallion. The world immediately turned black and white. A saber light flew out of the blue dragon medallion, crossing the river of time and space. 10,000 years ago, the unrivaled Qing emperor swept through the world. His saber light reappeared in the world. Under this saber light, the 8 blue-robed emperors were chopped in half together with the space around them. This saber light split the sky. Sha, sha. After a long time, the world regained its color. The bodies of the 8 blue-robed emperors seemed to fade away with the wind, vanishing into thin air. Dead. The 8 blue-robed emperors died just like that, vanishing into thin air. There was nothing in the air that could prove the existence of the 8 blue-robed emperors, not even a speck of dust. If one had not seen it for themselves, no one would believe that the 8 blue-robed emperors had been here. What kind of saber light was that? The world was colorless, only black and white. It crossed time and space, a saber strike that lasted 10,000 years. The blue dragon medallion on Xiao Chen's finger recovered to its original state. The saber light was no longer there. In the future, he would not be able to use it to block Emperor Wu's aura. However, it did not matter. Xiao Chen did not feel any pity or regret. Whether it was worth it or not, he felt that it was worth it. Given Xiao Chen's strength, if he wanted to leave, no one would be able to stop him. He would not need the Qing Emperor's medallion at all. However, it was worth it to help Mo Chen clear the obstacles and not leave behind a mess. As long as he had a clear conscience, it would be worth it. There was no need to care about the gains and losses. In life, there were always some things that could not be measured in terms of gains and losses. I'm leaving. Let's meet again if fate wills it. If you have any difficulties in the future, Miss Mo Chen can go to Heavenly Star Island and look for some of my friends. Let's meet again. The hardest thing to say was parting. However, he still had to say it when he needed to. All good things must come to an end. Xiao Chen was not a wishy-washy person. Mo Chen squeezed out a smile and said, "Let's meet again. Since you said you're leaving, then leave. Stop dilly-dallying." Right. Xiao Chen pushed off with his feet and soared into the air. Before everyone's eyes, he flew into the distance. Wait a moment. This is for you. While in the air, Xiao Chen turned around. When Mo Chen called out to him, he waved his hand, and the grief pendant quickly flew towards her. The remnant flower was like blood, filled with grief. The scarlet remnant flower had many illusions, flowing with light and vibrant colors, looking beautiful and sorrowful. The two had met because of this item and parted because of it. The sorrow of parting seemed to reflect the meaning of grief. Xiao Chen looked at the grief pendant in a somewhat distracted manner. In his rush to leave, he actually forgot about this most important item. Did he subconsciously choose to escape because he feared disappointment and loneliness? When the grief pendant arrived before Xiao Chen, he stretched out his hand and grabbed it firmly. Then he turned his head back and happened to meet Mo Chen's gaze. Don't forget our agreement. When I reach the blue-robed emperor realm, I will definitely come and look for you. Xiao Chen smiled. This time he really smiled. This time, it was no longer a white lie. I will wait for you. I will watch you knock on the emperor's door and personally watch you take off your veil. Mo Chen heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Whether he was the Blue Dragon King or Wenziren, he was still the person who stretched out his cold hand to hold hers when everyone in the world abandoned her. Given this, nothing else mattered. When the thousands of cultivators in the Cloud Sea domain felt Xiao Chen's figure slowly vanish from their sight, they all felt that the one disappearing was not Xiao Chen's figure, but a living legend. In the 100,000 years of the martial epoch, there were countless people who could be called legends. Not to mention the ancient era sages, even the Qing emperor from the later ancient era was a glorious legend. However, there was only one living legend, which was the Thunder King from the same era as the Qing emperor. Now there was probably one more person, the Blue Dragon King Xiao Chen. Perhaps he was truly worthy of the word legend. Xiao Chen flew quickly. Along the way, he passed by an island. Then he slowly floated down and landed firmly on the ground. The green robe on his body slowly changed, and once again returned to white, due to the Blue Dragon King's insignia. The clear wind robes had already advanced from an unranked secret treasure to a Peak King grade secret treasure. However, it seemed like the azure energy in the medallion could not be used indefinitely. Earlier, when Xiao Chen fought with Wang Zhan, the Shattered Cloud City's city lord, the azure energy in the medallion could not be used indefinitely. When Xiao Chen fought with Wang Zhan, the clear wind robes helped him withstand a lot of pressure, neutralizing a large portion of the other party's force. This time, the clear wind robes exhausted too much energy, so it entered a state of replenishment. Xiao Chen checked the clear wind robes and did not care. The color of his robes did not affect him much. Xiao Chen stopped to wait for a person, an old friend of his from the Sky Dome realm. Taking advantage of the free time, Xiao Chen took out the Emperor Yi Shooting Sun Bow, the greatest harvest of this trip. Then he fiddled with it with a smile. The design of the bow was exceptionally magnificent. It was a fiery red, and the two ends of the bow were like wings. When Xiaochen gently plucked the bowstring, the wings flapped gently, and the entire bow seemed to come to life. Xiaochen sighed with some regret. Without the item spirit, even if this bow came to life, it still lacked the most crucial charm. Chapter 1045. It had eyes but no spirit. It needed the finishing touch to revive the item's spirit. Only then could this divine bow regain its former glory. Oh, that's right. Ao Jiao, I keep hearing people talk about the divine weapon ranking. What kind of existence is the divine weapon ranking? Why is it that the divine weapons on the divine weapon ranking contain divine might and rival primordial emperor treasures? Xiaochen asked as he put away the sun-shooting bow. Ao Jiao explained. I am not clear on the exact reason. This ranking has existed since the birth of the martial epoch. As long as the divine weapon in your hand reaches a certain level, it will push down another divine weapon and automatically enter the ranking. It is that miraculous? It really is that miraculous. I heard from Sangmu that the ranking was carved on a divine stone. In the past, his greatest wish was for the Thunder King's mulberry sword to enter the ranking when it became a divine weapon. Unfortunately, Xiaochen smiled and said, "It's fine. When the Lunar Shadow Sword becomes a divine weapon, I will definitely let it enter the divine weapon ranking." Ha! I also look forward to that day. At that time, I will know the answer and answer your question. Ao Jiao paused for a while before saying, "Your friend is here." Xiaochen looked up and saw Xianyuan Zhantian's figure slowly appearing in his vision. As he got closer, he landed on the island. It was rare for Xiaochen to meet Xianyuan Zhantian in the Cloud Sea domain. Naturally, he wanted to catch up with him. Before he left, he sent a voice projection to Xianyuan Zhantian. "It has been 3 years since we last met. It looks like Brother Xianyuan has had a lot of fortuitous encounters." Xiaochen said calmly. Xianyuan Zhantian's current strength was much weaker than his. However, compared to the outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent, Xianyuan Zhantian was probably no weaker. Xianyuan Zhantian's will of kingship still had many areas that he could dig out. His potential was even greater. Xianyuan Zhantian did not deny it. He smiled and said, "Not bad. The sea is my true home. Here I raised my state of kingship to a will. Then I had a fortuitous encounter and practiced a cultivation technique for merging the will into the physical body, the Battle King art. I just reached small perfection. Defeating a regular great grandmaster level martial sage is already easy. It is not difficult. Merging the will with the physical body. This was the first time Xiaochen had heard of this. How could one merge the will with the body? The next level of will was the domain. As long as the will of water was raised to the limit, it could evolve into water comprehension. The will of thunder, the will of ice, and the will of fire followed the same principle. The domain represented by the will of kingship was the king's domain. It was a very strong domain. Once Xianyuan Zhantian comprehended it, he would be able to surpass many of his opponents. Xianyuan Zhantian noticed Xiaochen's doubts. He smiled and said, "The heavenly starry ocean is a very vast world. Before the last Neptune died, the inheritance of the martial Tao had never been broken or destroyed. Many of the things related to martial Tao are even more complete than in the Kunlun continent. From what I know, the will of thunder can also fuse with the body. Fire and ice can do the same. There are even 2 types of will that can fuse with the body. For example, lightning, fire, wind, and snow. This world has never lacked geniuses." Xianyuan Zhantian spoke of some of his experiences in the heavenly starry ocean, widening Xiaochen's horizons. "Given your strength, there is no need for you to remain in the Cloud Sea domain, right?" Xiaochen asked. Xianyuan Zhantian nodded and said, "Originally, I was prepared to leave the Cloud Sea domain after the trip to the Treasure Mountain to continue seeking fortuitous encounters. After that, I would display my skills at the Four Seas Hero Gathering." "What is the Four Seas Hero Gathering?" Xiaochen looked at Xianyuan Zhantian interestedly, waiting for a detailed explanation. Xianyuan Zhantian smiled and said, "The Four Seas Hero Gathering is also known as the Four Seas Hero Gathering. It is held once every 20 years. and is a major event that will shake the entire heavenly starry ocean. It is hosted by the Lunar Palace, an immortal holy land. Immortal holy land? This was the first time Xiaochen heard of this term, so he asked out of curiosity. Xianyuan Zhantian explained, "This is a term that I gave myself. You should be familiar with holy lands. There are about 5 or 6 holy lands that still exist in the Kunlun continent. However, in my opinion, these are not immortal holy lands. They experienced the 100 Race War, and the even more horrifying War of Emperors. All the holy lands of the Kunlun continent from the ancient era, like the Firely sect, suffered a destructive blow and lost their inheritance. Only after 10,000 years, 50,000 years, or 100,000 years can they be called immortal holy lands. Because the heavenly starry ocean has always been ruled by Neptune, Neptune's inheritance has been passed down from generation to generation. There have never been any large-scale war of emperors. Hence, the holy lands attached to the palace of Neptune never lost their inheritance. Of course, there are also holy lands that disappeared in the long river of history, due to insufficient luck. Now there are only 6 immortal holy lands in the heavenly starry ocean. They are the Zodiac Hall, the 5 Poison Sect, the Inyang Paradise, the Myriad Fiend Island, the Heavenly Province Academy, and the Frost Moon Palace. In the past, there was an extremely strong holy land of the Buddhist sects, the Minor Lane Temple. Unfortunately, 10,000 years ago, the Qing Emperor led the Dragon's Gate into the heavenly starry ocean. They targeted the Minor Lane Temple and completely destroyed it. An immortal holy land. So this is an immortal holy land. It looks like the factions of the heavenly starry ocean are much stronger than I imagined. Furthermore, there is actually a mysterious holy land of the Buddhist sects in the heavenly starry ocean. Furthermore, the Qing Emperor destroyed it. Xiaochen thought to himself. Then he asked, "Is the Northern Sea Alliance not considered an immortal holy land?" Before Xiaochen entered the heavenly starry ocean, he had heard of the Northern Sea Alliance's fame. Xianyuan Zhantian shook his head and said, "Naturally, it cannot be considered one. It is just an alliance formed by many factions. Of course, its strength is no weaker than that of a holy land. Some ancient noble clans are as strong as a holy land. However, they are too closed off. In my opinion, they cannot be considered holy lands." After that, Xianyuan Zhantian sighed. Right now the heavenly starry ocean is very vast. There are millions of sects and billions of islands. The factions are intertwined with each other, competing for resources and fighting with each other. The holy lands are the first to bear the brunt. It is very chaotic. No one is willing to submit to anyone else. Xiaochen smiled and said, "It is indeed very chaotic. There are immortal holy lands, ancient noble clans, huge factions like the Northern Sea Alliance, and the various factions that rose up later on." Xianyuan Zhantian glanced at Xiaochen and smiled. "Speaking of chaos, this matter actually has something to do with you. When the Qing Emperor destroyed the Neptune Palace, with the strength of the Dragon's Gate, it should have been able to suppress the various holy lands. Unfortunately, the Qing Emperor mysteriously fell, and the Dragon's Gate was destroyed. The heavenly starry ocean fell into chaos. If you can really rebuild the Dragon's Gate, and reach the height of the Qing Emperor, you might be able to restore peace to the heavenly starry ocean." Unexpectedly, there was such a thing. Xiaochen was not willing to dwell on this topic, so he changed the topic. "Let's talk about the Four Seas Hero Gathering. Why is the Lunar Palace holding such a grand event?" Xianyuan Zhantian did not find this troublesome. He explained in detail, and Xiaochen finally understood the ins and outs of the Four Seas Hero Gathering. The Lunar Palace's position transcended the world. They did not have any ambitions, but they were extremely strong, respected by everyone. The Lunar Palace originally held the Four Seas Hero Gathering to choose the outstanding young talents of the entire heavenly starry ocean to compete with the immortal cultivators of the Pringlai Sea. The Lunar Palace used the battles of the younger generation to resolve the conflicts and disputes between the heavenly starry ocean and the Pringlai Sea. However, now the Pringlai Sea pursued the idea of secluding itself from the world, and rarely had any conflicts with the heavenly starry ocean. The original purpose of the Four Seas Hero Gathering no longer existed. As of now, The Four Seas Hero Gathering was just a stage for the outstanding young talents of the various holy lands to bare their fangs and fight for fame. Furthermore, the Lunar Palace would take out an extremely important prize every time the Four Seas Hero Gathering was held, making the scale of the Four Seas Hero Gathering larger and larger. The Four Seas Hero Gathering was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Xianyuan Zhantian said. There is still one more year before the Four Seas Hero Gathering begins. At that time, you can go and join in the excitement. Xiaochen shook his head and said, I am not interested in these things. Heavenly Star Island still faces many dangers. I have to think of a way to raise my strength quickly. Xianyuan Zhantian knew that Xiaochen was speaking the truth. After chatting for a long time, he performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. On this trip to the Treasure Mountain, the two of them had gained something. They definitely had to summarize their gains and could not chat for too long. Actually, you can go and take a look at the Four Seas Hero Gathering. The Frost Moon Palace is full of female disciples. Ao Jiao teased from the Immortal Spirit Ring. Under Ao Jiao's care, the most precious spirit tree in the Immortal Spirit Ring, the Lunar Cassia Tree, was growing healthily. It looked like it was about to bloom again. Of course, this was because Xiaochen had infused a peak spirit vein into the Immortal Spirit Ring. We'll see. Right now, Xiaochen was very busy. He had already taken out the 10 jade strips from the 10,000 treasure pavilion. He sent in his spiritual sense and checked anxiously, hoping to find a profound martial technique suitable for him. Profound spear technique. Heaven-burning spear technique. Xiaochen shook his head and placed a jade strip to the side. Clearly he could not practice this. Sword technique, staff technique, spear technique. In the blink of an eye, Xiaochen tossed out 5 or 6 jade strips. He could not use any of them. He could not help but reveal an expression of disappointment. Profound saber technique, 1,000 frost battle snow. Xiaochen's face lit up in joy. There was finally a profound martial technique for the saber technique. He had thought that he would be really unlucky if there was no saber technique among the 10 jade strips. Furthermore, it was an ice-attributed martial technique. What Xiaochen lacked right now was an ice-attributed martial technique. This 1,000 frost battle snow was perfect for him. Xiaochen carefully put away this jade strip. Then, he checked the other 3 jade strips and discovered that they did not have much to do with him. However, that did not matter. It was already pretty good that he could find a profound martial technique that was so compatible with him. As for the remaining 9 jade strips, he could make copies of them and auction them off. Every single one of them would fetch a sky-high price. A profound martial technique could easily fetch a price of 1 million black astral coins, perhaps even higher. With a flip of his palm, a spatial ring appeared. This was the spatial ring of the loose cultivator Gao Yangyu. Xiaochen was already very familiar with killing people and snatching their treasures. The instant Xiaochen killed Gao Yangyu, this spatial ring silently landed in his hand. After all, Xiaochen had already reached the level of the blue-robed emperor. Gao Yangyu's wealth would definitely bring him a great surprise. The only unfortunate thing was that Qing Emperor's saber strike was too horrifying. He had killed the 8 blue-robed emperors until not even a speck of dust remained. Naturally, there was no hope of obtaining a spatial ring. Otherwise, if Xiaochen could obtain all the spatial rings of the 8 blue-robed emperors, his already rich wealth would soar once again. Chapter 1046. After thinking for a while, Xiaochen handed the spatial rings to Ao Jiao and got her to sort them out. He also handed the spatial rings of the 2 Sun Palace elite disciples and the young master of the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion to Ao Jiao. The items in the spatial rings were all over the place, so organizing them took a lot of time. Since Ao Jiao could help, Xiaochen was naturally happy to do so. Xiaochen still had more important things to do. He needed to merge the Solar True Flame and the Purple Thunder True Fire, and cultivate the 1,000 Frost Battle Snow. After the heavenly laws took form, he still needed to stabilize them and make the final preparations for breaking through to the blue-robed emperor. When the time was right, he would immediately start forging the bridge to heaven. All these would require at least 2 months of closed-door cultivation. The blue-robed emperor was a bridge that connected to the other shore, a bridge to heaven that opened the emperor's door. The chasm between heaven and earth was extremely vivid. One step across it was the difference between heaven and earth. From then on, Xiaochen would be reborn, reaching the top of the world's pyramid in one step. Most cultivators in the world would not be able to reach this chasm and see the emperor's door on the other shore. From martial disciple to martial master, martial grandmaster, martial saint, martial king, martial monarch and martial sage, Xiaochen had spent 12 years cutting his way through all the obstacles. Now he finally reached a level that countless people could not reach in their lifetimes, standing before the chasm between heaven and earth. Outsiders would not know how many life and death situations Xiaochen had experienced and how much bitterness he had suffered. No one could imagine that Xiaochen could not cultivate normally until he was 16. He was several years slower than regular cultivators, and at least 10 years slower than those outstanding talents. However, Xiaochen relied on his tenacious perseverance to endure unimaginable loneliness and solitude. Finally, he overtook most of the outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent. He took the lead and stood before the chasm between heaven and earth. It was like what Xiaochen had always believed in. A person's talent only determined how fast they could go. Only perseverance determined how far they could go. On a desolate island in the calm sea, Xiaochen sat cross-legged. As long as he calmed down, he could enter a wondrous state. A natural barrier that seemed to have been cut off by someone appeared before him. At the end of the barrier was a clump of fog. Xiaochen did not know how far away it was. He could vaguely make out a golden door in the fog. This was the emperor's door. When he finished building the bridge, the emperor's door would appear in reality. The path to heaven descended, and brightly colored heavenly flowers descended to receive him. Then the Xiaochen would send down the heavenly road and bring him up. Xiaochen sank his consciousness into his dantian. The 10,000 dragon-shaped heavenly sage laws all gave off a crystalline light. His potential as a martial sage had already reached its limit. His potential as a martial sage had already reached its limit. He could no longer make any progress. Even if a Holy Spirit vein or a King Spirit vein was placed before him, he would not be able to absorb it. Only by transforming the heavenly sage laws into the higher-level heavenly laws, becoming compatible with the world and returning to the natural state, could one continue to improve. In Chun had sovereign, Chun had spirit Wu Ao Qi to Ling. On the other hand, he had spirit Wu Ao Qi to check if his potential had reached its limit. This was very important. If Xiaochen had not reached its limit, he had to find out what potential he could dig out. Otherwise, if Xiaochen started transforming his heavenly laws, he would suffer a great loss. At that time, as a blue-robed emperor, he would be much weaker than the other outstanding talents. For example, before Xiaochen's heavenly laws took form, there were only 5,000 of them. If Xiaochen had transformed his heavenly laws at that time, he would have lost half of his heavenly laws, becoming a blue-robed emperor and regretting it. Ao Jiao, who was helping Xiaochen tidy up the many spatial rings, felt startled when she saw Xiaochen's heavenly sage laws. Back then, the Thunder King's heavenly laws had also taken form. However, he had reached his limit with only 7,000 heavenly laws. Now, Xiaochen had reached this level and had 3,000 more heavenly sage laws than the Thunder King. With such a level, Ao Jiao guessed that even in the ancient era, when the martial epic was at its most glorious, Xiaochen would have ranked at the top, surpassing most of the predecessors. Furthermore, Xiaochen had a peak rank 4 sage body and cultivated both his physical body and his heavenly laws. It was hard to imagine how far Xiaochen could go in the future. Sovereign martial emperor, prime, or even higher, the martial god realm that only appeared in legends? Seeing that Xiaochen had no intention of opening his eyes, Ao Jiao was startled. Could it be that Xiaochen was planning to enter the blue-robed emperor realm now? However, after thinking about it, this was normal. Xiaochen's cultivation had fallen for 3 months before recovering. Everything came naturally when the conditions were right. There would not be any unstable cultivation or unstable foundation. Since ancient times, there had never been a great grandmaster-level martial sage who severely injured themselves, causing their cultivation to fall and cultivating bitterly again when they were about to enter the blue-robed emperor realm. No one dared to take such a risk with their hard-earned cultivation. Xiaochen managed to reach this step because of Neptune's crown and coincidentally. Now that Xiaochen knew the benefits of breaking through to establishing himself, he dared to attempt to enter the blue-robed emperor realm at this moment. Otherwise, even if Xiaochen was beaten to death, he would not have purposely severely injured himself, causing his cultivation to fall to martial monarch. Xiaochen thought about his initial predicament on the Purple Cloud warship, where 10-odd martial monarchs held their weapons to his neck. He nearly died at the hands of a minor character like a martial monarch. If word got out that the Blue Dragon King fell because of this, he would become a laughingstock, mocked for thousands of years. Days passed. At some point in time, motes of electric light fell on Xiaochen's body, increasing in number until they formed a large electric cocoon surrounding him. Ao Jiao did not find this strange. Many years ago, the Thunder King had reached this step as well. While joy appeared on Xiaochen's face, there was also some worry. Normally, there would not be any danger in transforming heavenly sage laws into heavenly laws. However, if one rushed it, one might end up in a state of berserking qi deviation and die. Don't be too anxious because of the pressure of re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. Ao Jiao felt very frustrated. As she watched Xiaochen charge to enter the blue-robed emperor realm, she felt even more anxious than the Thunder King back then. The Thunder King was alone with no worries. However, Xiaochen carried the title of the Qing Emperor's descendant along the way, shouldering the heavy burden of re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. The pressure of the two could not be mentioned in the same breath. After much difficulty, Ao Jiao managed to clear out most of the treasures. Then, she sent out a palm strike and scattered the treasures everywhere. As Xiaochen looked at the electric cocoon, his eyes filled with worry. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. If Xiaochen knew about this, he would definitely not know whether to laugh or cry. After a long time, a trace of calmness flashed in Ao Jiao's eyes as she turned around. Then she tidied up the scattered treasures. She blew off the dust on them and sorted them out. He was meticulous and orderly, and there was no longer any trace of frustration on his face. He only buried his worry deep in his heart. Eastern Sea, Neptune's old subordinates, in a secret room of a palace in the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's territory. When Lung Xiaofan read the news he had just received, his expression turned gloomy. Neptune's daughter, Princess Qin, lay quietly among the flowers beside Lung Xiaofan, sleeping quietly. Xiaochen had destroyed a blue-robed emperor with 3 punches, sent the small perfection blue-robed emperor flying with 1 saber strike, and finally used his trump card to kill 8 blue-robed emperors with 1 saber strike. Lung Xiaofan did not feel surprised at Xiaochen's sudden increase in strength. He continued to calmly calculate and plan in his heart. Xiaochen carefully read every single word of the news again. Then 2 crucial scenes appeared in his mind. After swallowing 10 peak spirit veins, Xiaochen's strength suddenly soared, and he used the Qing Emperor's medallion to kill 8 blue-robed emperors. The former meant that Xiaochen's strength soared in such a short time. He needed to cultivate quietly to stabilize his cultivation. Xiaochen was definitely still in the Cloud Sea domain, and could not have gone far. The latter meant that the talisman that the Thunder King gave Xiaochen had already been used up. Adding the two together, the conclusion was that this was the best opportunity to kill Xiaochen. Xiaochen did not have a talisman, and was cultivating. If he waited for Xiaochen to stabilize his cultivation, it would be even more difficult to kill him. Aside from some exceptions, Lung Xiaofan's guess was close to the truth. This was a rather difficult person to deal with. After a while, Lung Xiaofan sent an order to his subordinates. Tell the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace that they only need to send out 3 blue-robed emperors to search for desolate islands within 250 kilometers of where the treasure mountain appeared. Then they will be able to find the cultivating Xiaochen. After killing the target, he does not want the Neptune crown or all the treasures on Xiaochen. However, he must keep the Neptune crown for him. If there is any exchange, the other party can make any requests. There were many conflicts between the Dragon Kings of the 4 seas. Everyone wanted to be the boss, to gather all the old subordinates of Neptune. As the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon King's descendant, Lung Xiaofan held great authority in the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace. However, he could not order the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace around. However, as long as Lung Xiaofan passed this news to the other party, the Neptune crown on Xiaochen would automatically attract the other party to do as he said. The sparks of lightning on the desolate island were like rain, never stopping since the start. The purple lightning cocoon lost its initial bright color and turned a deep purple. The various treasures in the spatial ring were already organized. Ao Jiao propped up her chin, her gaze never leaving the lightning cocoon. It has been 2 months. Xiaochen has already accumulated enough. When the conditions are right, success will follow. Logically speaking, the conversion of his heavenly sage laws should have reached consummation long ago. Ao Jiao muttered. Ao Jiao muttered softly. However, she also relaxed. 2 months was enough to show that Xiaochen did not panic or rush things. Xiaochen still sought speed with stability. As long as nothing unexpected happened, Xiaochen was confident of advancing to the blue-robed emperor realm. If nothing unexpected happened, Xiaochen should be able to break out of the cocoon soon. Just as Xiaochen thought this, Ao Jiao suddenly frowned. She gently slapped the ground and stood up. Then she looked into the distance. There were 3 powerful auras in front of them. They were rushing over quickly, and the strength of each of them was not weaker than any of the 8 city lords. 3 small perfection blue-robed emperor experts working together to charge over. They really know how to pick the right time to make their move. Ao Jiao's expression turned frosty as a murderous intent brewed in her eyes. She stretched out her hand, and the lunar shadow saber stabbed into the ground beside Xiaochen silently flew into her grasp. Chapter 1047. Xiaochen turned her head back to look at the lightning cocoon and sighed. I just knew that this fellow would not be peaceful after he becomes the blue-robed emperor. Xiaochen's figure flashed, and Ao Jiao hugged the lunar shadow saber as she landed beside the lightning cocoon. Her figure slowly dimmed and finally vanished into thin air, as though she was no longer there. Buzz. The 3 blue-robed emperors of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace wore black dragon robes, and withdrew their auras. They landed firmly on the desolate island. Their eyes filled with excitement as they looked at the lightning cocoon not far away. What a fellow! The information that Lung Xiaofan brought is indeed correct. This Xiaochen is really on a desolate island within 250 kilometers. Furthermore, he actually chose this time to make his breakthrough to the blue-robed emperor. The youth on the right, the blue-robed emperor, laughed softly as he carried a saber on his back. The lightning cocoon was a sign of a lightning-attributed cultivator, making his breakthrough to the blue-robed emperor. Combined with the information that Lung Xiaofan brought, there was no need to guess. There was no need to guess. It was definitely Xiaochen inside. Haha. Being able to obtain Neptune's crown and offer it to the Dragon King is a great merit. The tall, skinny, black-haired youth on the left could not hide his joy. Only the white-haired old man in the middle showed a calm expression. He remained silent as he looked around cautiously. He raised his hand and pointed, and an ice sword chi shot out from his fingertip. The moment the sword chi appeared, frost immediately covered the ground. Clearly, his will of ice had reached an extremely high level. The crystalline sword chi looked solid. When the sunlight shone on it, it gave off a boundless glow. This made the sword chi that flashed by look like a beam of light flying out of his hand. Kung Chang. When the sword chi struck the lightning cocoon, it gave off a melodious clang. Electric light flickered, and the ice sword chi turned into mist and vanished. The huge lightning cocoon did not budge at all. Not a single crack appeared. The 3 were stunned at the same time, feeling incredulous. The blue-robed emperor, who carried a saber on his back, was flabbergasted. What a strong lightning cocoon! What kind of accumulation did this fellow have for him to make his breakthrough to the blue-robed emperor? I'll go smash him. The tall and skinny blue-robed emperor had a fiery temper. He took a step forward and was ready to kill his way through. The white-haired old man said solemnly, Ping Jun, be careful. Haha, don't worry, old Chung. He's at a critical moment now. Even if he knows that we're here, he'll be helpless. He's dead for sure today. The blue-robed emperor named Ping Jun laughed madly without a care in the world. Indeed, if Xiaochen were to stop attacking the blue-robed emperor at this moment, all his previous efforts would be in vain. But he would definitely suffer serious internal injuries from the recoil of the laws. No matter how one looked at it, fighting against 3 lesser-tier blue-robed emperors with a weak body was a hopeless situation. However, if he did not give up, he would only become a dead target. Passively receiving attacks from others would also result in death. No matter how one looked at it, it was a dead end. There was no possibility of survival. From tens of thousands of kilometers away, Lung Xiaofan managed to push Xiaochen into desperate straits with just a few words. This person's stratagem could be said to be unparalleled. Unfortunately, everything in the world had a chance of survival. Out of 50, 9 out of 40 would be used. Even if one was gone, there would always be a chance of survival. This chance of survival for Xiaochen rested on Ao Jiao. Ping Jun's figure flickered, and a red light flickered on his body. The clouds in the sky churned, and strong winds blew. Horrifying energy flowed out of the heavenly law imprint in his body and gathered in his body. His body merged with the sky. As he flew over, he merged with the world. Then he suddenly attacked and punched. The energy that Xiaochen drove seemed to move the entire world. This was the strength of the blue-robed emperor. He returned to his natural state, merging with the world and forming heavenly laws. Every move of his could bring out the power of the world. It looked like the horrifying attack was about to strike the lightning cocoon. If the berserk energy struck it, the lightning tribulation would definitely shatter. Xiaochen, who was in the middle of it, could not continue even if he wanted to. He could only allow the blue-robed emperor to stop attacking and suffer the backlash of the law energy. However, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, a resplendent saber light lit up in the void. The saber light flickered for an instant. The instant the saber light flashed, a flash of divine lightning appeared in the sky. Dark clouds covered the sky, casting darkness for 5 kilometers around. Before Ping Jun could react, this saber light struck his body. He could not dodge or defend at all. Damn it! Xiaochen roared ferociously. At the final moment before the saber light chopped him in half, he punched Ao Jiao. Kasie. The divine lightning turned into a thunder rock. As the saber light chopped down, Ping Jun's body was chopped in half. Electric light burst out and shattered his body. When Ao Jiao suddenly attacked, the blue-robed emperor's small perfection Ping Jun was chopped into pieces, not even leaving a corpse behind. This sudden change caught the white-haired old man and the other black-haired youth off guard. They did not even have a chance to save Xiaochen. Ao Jiao suffered a punch from Ping Jun before he died. She was significantly injured, and her body looked somewhat illusory. She was no longer as lifelike as before. However, she grasped the lunar shadow saber tightly and looked coldly at the two in front. She stood guard beside the lightning cocoon, not moving at all. Item spirit. An item spirit with the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor. When the two saw the situation clearly and saw the lunar shadow saber in Ao Jiao's hand, their gazes turned fervent. An item spirit with the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor. If such a subdivine weapon could reach divine weapon rank in the future, it would most likely rank in the divine weapon ranking. Even if it did not rank in the divine weapon ranking, it would still be an extremely precious divine weapon. Its value far surpassed that of other divine weapons. Haha, not bad. I want this saber. The black-haired youth smiled faintly and said, "The Blue Dragon King is really a human-shaped treasure trove. He has an extraordinary amount of good things on him. You want it? Are you qualified?" Just at this moment, cracks appeared in the deep purple lightning cocoon. A voice came from it. Kasie, Kasie. The lightning cocoon shattered into pieces, and thousands of electric lights surged out, forming a huge purple pillar of light soaring into the sky. Xiaochen stood in the light, dressed in white. Winds blew in all directions and clouds gathered. His body merged with the heavens. With a thought, he could stir up the winds and clouds. Xiaochen's gaze was like lightning as he looked at the two in front. The aura of a king looking down on the world surged out as his gaze moved. The white-haired old man and the black-haired youth revealed horrified expressions. They could not help but take 2 steps back. Ao Jiao revealed joy on her face. Xiaochen succeeded. After 12 years of life and death battles, he finally became an emperor. Attacked together. When the white-haired old man and the black-haired youth saw that Xiaochen had successfully broken through to the blue-robed emperor realm, They pressured them with their auras with just one look. The two steeled their hearts. They knew that if they did not work together, they had no chance of victory. They shouted coldly and charged over. Within the pillar of lightning, Xiaochen watched the two flying over quietly. He was as unmoving as a mountain, standing like an old pine tree. He used his hands to face his enemies. The three blue-robed emperors merged with the heavens. Every move they made drove the power of the world. When they attacked, the world changed. The ground spun, and the sky spun. The distant sea and the nearby mountain were like illusions. They appeared around the three like fleeting lights and passing shadows. The blue-robed emperor's combat style was already very different from that of ordinary cultivators. Just by raising his hand, he could stir up the wind and clouds. Every move he made could draw on the power of the world. Such a scene was not a mysterious phenomenon or an illusion. It was a natural phenomenon produced when the power of the world was frequently driven. Their figures flickered, and the three quickly exchanged 100 moves. Xiaochen countered every move. His hands moved like lightning, moving unpredictably. He blocked all the moves of the black-haired youth and the white-haired old man. Soon 100 moves passed. Suddenly there was a loud explosion. The desolate island under them could no longer endure the power of the world driven by the three's heavenly laws. Boom! The vast sea vanished into thin air. A huge black whirlpool appeared in the seawater, swallowing up the surrounding seawater. The three fell into the whirlpool, and the seawater spun on both sides, rumbling endlessly. However, the expressions of the three did not change. They ignored the whirlpool and continued to attack at lightning speed. The shock waves from the exchange, and the power of the world driven by the heavenly laws prevented the black hole from filling up. Instead, the whirlpool expanded. Soon, it reached 10 kilometers in diameter. How many heavenly sage laws did he accumulate before he tried to break through to the blue-robed emperor realm? The black-haired youth and the white-haired old man felt increasingly startled. They had already been in the blue-robed emperor realm for several decades. The power of the world that the heavenly laws could drive should far surpass that of Xiaochen, who had just advanced to the blue-robed emperor realm. However, in reality, Xiaochen could drive more power of the world than the two of them combined, even though he was fighting one against two. From the very beginning, Xiaochen had been suppressing them. As the three fell, the end of the whirlpool extended downwards. Bang! It extended to the bottom of the sea, spreading out in all directions. Looking down from the sky, the flat surface of the sea looked like a bottomless pit that was closing up at an extremely fast speed. Boom! The seawater suddenly merged together. The instant it merged, an overwhelming pillar of water shot out, shattering the clouds. It looked like it pierced through the sky. Three figures leaped out of the water pillar. They were Xiaochen's group of three, who had just stopped fighting. In a short time, the two had already exchanged thousands of moves, fighting from the ground to the bottom of the sea, and then from the bottom of the sea to the clouds. This was the true battle between the blue-robed emperor realms. The black-haired youth and the white-haired old man appeared to be in sorry states. The instant the seawater merged, the three had shown some openings. However, the one who grasped these openings was Xiaochen. Despite moving later, he arrived first, punching the two in the chest, severely injuring them. Even now they were in pain. Let's go. Once he becomes stronger, we will not be able to stop him. The white-haired old man said sullenly. Then the two turned and left. In the earlier 1,000 moves, they had exhausted a lot of energy. Furthermore, they were injured. If they did not leave now, they would not be able to. Xiaochen said calmly. You can come and go as you please. How can there be such a good thing? Ao Jiao saber. Ao Jiao smiled faintly and sheathed her saber. Then, she turned into a beam of light and entered the saber, chasing after Xiaochen. Ao Jiao was the lunar shadow saber's item spirit. However, most of the time, she was not willing to remain in the saber. The true might of the lunar shadow saber, the sharpness of a subdivine weapon, was rarely revealed. Xiaochen stretched out his hand and drew the lunar shadow saber the instant it brushed past him. An unparalleled sharpness spread out in the world. Metallic sounds reverberated in all directions. Boundless saber intent filled the air. Chapter 1048. Xiaochen pushed off the air, and his body suddenly spun around, executing instant of glory. Bright moon and autumn wind. A world of its own with each spin. As Xiaochen spun around, mysterious phenomena appeared. The scene was grand and majestic. With that instant of saber light, it turned into eternal glory. The black-clad youth fleeing in the back showed a grave expression. He took out 3 ancient shields, trying to block this saber. However, now that the lunar shadow saber had Ao Jiao in it, its might rivaled that of a regular divine weapon. How could a few Peking-grade shields block it? This moment of instant of glory was eternal. The black-clad youth's body was chopped in half along with the shields. Xiaochen stretched out his hand, and the spatial ring that the black-clad youth left behind flew into his grasp. Then, he looked at the white-haired old man who was already far away and did not give chase. Now that Xiaochen had reached the threshold of the blue-robed emperor, as long as the great perfection blue-robed emperor did not appear, the small perfection blue-robed emperor would find it hard to suppress him. Xiaochen looked around, and found another desolate island. His body seemed to vanish into thin air as he landed on it. Some of the wondrous uses of heavenly laws could be infused into movement techniques by drawing on the power of the world. However, when one's speed reached its limit, they could increase it by 10%. This was something that Xiaochen comprehended in the earlier battle. Ao Jiao came out of the saber, revealing a smile on her face. She opened her hand, revealing a blue-robed emperor's spatial ring. I heard their conversation. They are the people of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace. That is, they are the old subordinates of Neptune, the faction of the Southern Sea Dragon King. Ao Jiao said softly. Xiaochen frowned slightly. The other party should be here for Neptune's crown. From the moment Xiaochen came into contact with the 7 heroes of the dragon, he felt that someone was hiding in the darkness like a venomous snake, targeting him. However, Xiaochen did not know anything about this person. He did not know the other party's true purpose. Forget it. As long as the other party's plan didn't succeed, there would always be a chance to capture the other party. Before that, he could only continue to improve his strength. Xiaochen collected his thoughts and smiled slightly. He handed the space ring in his hand to Ao Jiao. Thanks for your help this time. If it wasn't for Ao Jiao, who had blocked a blow for him at the most crucial moment, he would have been in grave danger. Ao Jiao took the ring and curled her lips. Hee, this is the reward you gave me. You didn't even give me a chance to relax. Xiaochen was slightly taken aback. He smiled and said, What do you want? I'll help you find it. Ao Jiao was speechless. This guy was still as dumb as before. As long as he could live well, why would she want anything? He even took her joke seriously. However, she really wanted something. She really wanted Xiaochen to help her find it, but she was very hesitant. She shook her head silently in her heart. Then she smiled and said, I'm just teasing you. These are the treasures I found from Gao Yangyu, Chen Wenjun, and the 2 Sun Palace elite disciples. I placed all the black astral coins on them in a space ring. There is not much, just 5 million black astral coins in total. 5 million black astral coins was a very large sum. After all, not everyone had the same fortuitous encounters as Xiaochen. Gao Yangyu was just a loose cultivator in the Cloud Sea domain. If he had not killed the 2 Sun Palace elite disciples, his black astral coins would have decreased even further. Xiaochen lowered his head and flipped through the treasures Ao Jiao found. There were secret manuals, medicinal pills, spirit weapons, secret treasures, and several other categories. After a quick look, Xiaochen shook his head slightly. Most of them did not catch his eye. After leaving the Cloud Sea domain, he would have to sell them off quickly. Hey, this fan is rather exquisite. Xiaochen discovered a white fan. The frame of the fan was made of many divine materials. It was hard and sturdy, and it felt very heavy in his hand. When the fan opened up, there was a painting of a night scene on the front. There was a bright moon, a small bridge, and a flowing river. There were people admiring the moon. The scene had a gentle beauty to it. There was a poem on the back. Ao Jiao said, This fan is pretty good. However, this fan is a strange weapon. Very few people use it. Most of them only show off their elegance and will not sell for a good price. Xiaochen entered deep thought. Then he put away the fan and smiled. I will not sell this first. I have a use for it. You really like to keep people in suspense. Seeing that Xiaochen only said half of it, Ao Jiao muttered. Then, she took out a secret manual that Xiaochen ignored. She said, "You should be able to use this." Back then, Gao Yongyu used this to hide his strength. Foundation Returning Art. Xiaochen read out the words on the secret manual. After flipping through a few pages, his eyes lit up. This cultivation technique was not complicated. After reading it once, Xiaochen roughly understood it. Its rank was not high, but it was very useful to Xiaochen. As long as one learned this cultivation technique, one could hide one's true strength at any time. Unless it was someone much stronger than one, no one would discover it. Back then, Gao Yongyu used this cultivation technique to hide from everyone. Xiaochen put away the foundation returning art and placed all the other treasures into a spatial ring. After he left the Cloud Sea domain, he would sell it. Hey, it's empty. It's still empty. Ao Jiao's expression changed slightly. The space in the two blue-robed emperors' spatial rings was chaotic. She did not see anything. When Xiaochen heard this, he could not help but be startled. He had high hopes for the wealth of the two blue-robed emperors' spatial rings. Why was there nothing in the spatial rings? What's going on? Xiaochen took a look for himself. Indeed, the spatial rings were empty. There was nothing in them. Ao Jiao lowered her head in thought. Clearly, the spatial rings of the blue-robed emperor would not be empty. This did not make sense. After a while, she came to a realization. I remember now. There should be some kind of secret treasure in the spatial rings. When the master dies, the imprint in the secret treasure vanishes. Then, it explodes and destroys the space in the spatial ring. There is such a secret treasure? Xiaochen was very surprised. His mood was somewhat depressed. The large amount of treasures that he expected was gone. Anyone would feel upset and depressed. Ao Jiao smiled and said, "Secret treasures that can destroy space are extremely rare. However, they definitely exist. An ancient faction like the Divine Dragon Palace should have many of them. They should be able to prepare one for all the experts above the blue-robed emperor. This is really ruthless. Even if I die, I cannot let others benefit from it." Xiaochen thought to himself, in the future when I defeat the blue-robed emperor, I cannot kill him on the spot. I have to knock him unconscious first. Xiaochen did not think about this for now. The trip to the treasure mountain had given him a bountiful harvest. 10 profound meaning jade strips were enough for him. So be it if the wealth of the two blue-robed emperors is gone. Right now there are still many things that I have to do. After taking out the grief pendant, Xiaochen revealed a nostalgic expression. Then he took out the cycle banner. Xiaochen prepared to refine the fourth grief throne into the cycle banner. That's right. Ao Jiao, make a trip to Starry Cloud Island. Help me see how the Mo clan is doing. Now that the 8 city lords were dead, the Cloud Sea domain would be in chaos for a long time. Xiaochen would have a great opportunity. This would give Mo-chan a great opportunity. Her talent had always been limited. Now that she grasped the Book of Heavenly Works and the shattered Cloud City's city lord, who had been suppressing her, was killed by Xiaochen, her future would be much smoother. Ao Jiao nodded. Then, her figure flashed as she flew towards Starry Cloud Island. Given Ao Jiao's current strength, which rivaled the blue-robed emperors, there was no one in the Cloud Sea domain that could threaten her. Xiaochen was about to leave the Cloud Sea domain. With Ao Jiao going to take a look, he could rest assured. Xiaochen took out the Dragon Phoenix cauldron and put away the Solar True Flame first. The surface of the Golden Crow egg was already covered in cracks. In another 2 or 3 months, it would successfully hatch. At that time, it would be worth anticipating what kind of existence it would be. Xiaochen took out the Golden Crow egg and placed it aside. Then he placed the grief pendant in. Then, Xiaochen started to use the Lunar True Flame to melt it. After his previous experience of merging thrones, Xiaochen was very familiar with the process. When the sky turned dark, he successfully merged the grief throne into the cycle banner. Massacre, death, ruin, and grief. Now he had gathered 4 of the 7 thrones. Only 3 remained. He already had news of the despair throne. He did not know when he would find news of the pain throne and the destruction throne. Whoosh! Xiaochen held the cycle banner and gently waved it. The banner fluttered, and starlight of 4 different colors intersected. The might of the cycle banner improved. When the words massacre, death, ruin, and grief were used together, even the blue-robed emperor would have to retreat. Unfortunately, as long as Xiaochen could not gather all 7 thrones, the cycle banner would only be in name. In the end, the will of thunder was weaker than the will of primal chaos. Even with the familiarity of the immortal will, it would still be hard to deal with Chu Chaoyun. Xiaochen wondered what the outstanding talents that went to the astral battlefield were like now. He also wondered what was so special about the experts of the Deep Abyss demon race of the same generation. Could Chu Chaoyun be in the astral battlefield as well? Xiaochen did not think about this for now. Then he put away the cycle banner and moved on to the next matter. To let the solar true flame swallow up the purple thunder true flame and strengthen it further. The solar true flame that Mo Chun gave Xiaochen was much weaker than his own lunar true flame. Only by swallowing up the purple thunder true flame could it contend with the lunar true flame and form the true Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram. The purple thunder true flame was the strongest yang attributed flame. However, it was not the strongest yang attributed flame. Its quality was slightly weaker than the lunar true flame. Xiaochen opened his palm, and the solar true flame and purple thunder true flame's origin flame appeared in his palm at the same time. Xiaochen gently pushed them up. The 2 clumps of light, one big and one small, quickly merged and swallowed each other up. The purple thunder true fire's origin flame was deeply rooted in the purple thunder divine incantation. It stubbornly resisted the solar true flame's swallowing, and even suffered a backlash. At this moment, Xiaochen needed to make a move to suppress the purple thunder true fire. The process of swallowing and merging was not smooth. It was even somewhat bumpy. After spending the entire night, Xiaochen heaved a sigh of relief. The solar true flame had finally swallowed up the purple thunder true fire. Contrary to what Xiaochen expected, the purple thunder true fire's origin flame did not seem to have completely disappeared. When he circulated the purple thunder divine incantation, he could still feel a connection with the solar true flame. Based on this, when the purple thunder divine incantation advanced to the 8th layer, the solar true flame would improve further because of the purple thunder true fire. Xiaochen's initial worries were no longer necessary. Xiaochen calmed himself down and dealt with the many matters on hand. On the desolate island, Xiaochen started practicing the saber, practicing the profound saber technique, Thousand Frost Battle Snow. If Xiaochen learned this move, he would have grasped 4 profound martial techniques: Instant of Glory, Subduing Dragon Profound Slash, and the 1,000-Year Flame. Every move was an earth-shattering killing move. When executed with the strength of a quasi-emperor, its might would be even more horrifying. Chapter 1049. The last 3 moves of the Myriad Heaven Divine Fist were not profound martial techniques. However, with Xiaochen's modifications and improvements, their destructive power was no weaker than the profound martial techniques of other cultivators. 7 days passed in a flash. Xiaochen had practiced most of the 1,000 Frost Battle Snow. In the end, it was a profound martial technique left behind by someone else. He could not execute it as he pleased, nor did he comprehend it smoothly. Whoosh! A petite figure flew over from the distance. With a thought, Xiaochen made the frost on the ground and the drifting snow in the sky vanish instantly. Ao Jiao landed on the ground and patted her chest. She smiled and said, "That girl is much smarter than you." She moved the Mo clan to the Broken Cloud Sea and hid there temporarily, making it difficult for me to find her. When Xiaochen heard this, he smiled. With this, he relaxed. Mo Chun was indeed a smart person. She knew that she had to endure when the time was right. "I saw you practicing the 1,000 Frost Battle Snow earlier. How was it? With your comprehension ability, it should be about time, right?" Ao Jiao asked with a smile. Xiaochen nodded and said, "Yes. Proud snow bullying Frost. 1,000 Frost does not accept it. The name of this saber is Proud. Snow has pride, Frost has pride. When the saber is swung, it has to bring out the pride in its bones, unleashing it without restraint." Ao Jiao entered deep thought as she sized up Xiaochen. She said, I suddenly discovered that the frost in this saber is very similar to you. White snow is born noble, descending from the sky. The moment it appears, it becomes the center of attention. Its pride soars to the clouds, revealing its cold light. On the other hand, frost is born from a lowly background. It is born from deep underground filled with ravines. From birth, it will be trampled on by others. However, no matter how lowly it is, no matter how ordinary it is, the pride in its bones will not die. Frost will eventually be able to defeat the white snow filling the sky. Ao Jiao's words made Xiaochen very spirited. Then he looked into the distance. Frost battles snow. Now this frost was going to leave this cloud sea domain. He wanted to see if the snow-covered outstanding talents of the heavenly starry ocean were as incredible as Xianyuan Zhantian said. Purple Cloud Island, the largest island at the edge of the Southern Sea. After crossing this island, one would officially enter the Southern Sea. The largest city on the island was called Purple Cloud City. In somewhere in the city. Did you hear? 2 of the Divine Dragon Palace's supreme elders died at the hands of the Blue Dragon King Xiaochun. Haha, how could I not know about the recent uproar in the Southern Sea region? I heard that even the old Dragon King, who was in closed-door training, was nearly alarmed. Speaking of which, this Blue Dragon King is really incredible. He used a secret treasure to instantly kill the 8 blue-robed emperors in the Cloud Sea domain. The Divine Dragon Palace thought that he had lost his trump card and wanted to take advantage of the situation. In the end, they suffered a double loss and lost face. Say, do you think that there is anyone in our Southern Sea region that can match up to Xiaochun within the same generation? Inns and taverns were always the places where cultivators gathered the most. This was also the place where news spread the fastest. The death of 2 blue-robed Emperor Supreme Elders of the Divine Dragon Palace was a major matter that could not be kept a secret. In less than a month, the news spread throughout the Southern Sea. Who could match up to the Blue Dragon King Xiaochun? When someone raised this question, the bustling inn immediately fell silent. Even the older generation blue-robed emperor died at the hands of Xiaochun. Who in the same generation could stop him? Perhaps the holy science of the immortal Holy Lands might be able to match him. Right. Don't overestimate others. The outstanding talents of our heavenly starry ocean are not weak either. The 5 poison sects' strange poison techniques, the myriad fiend islands' ancient inheritance, and the Heavenly Province Academy's righteous chi are all at least 100,000 years old. I heard that the Lunar Palace's holy daughter is coming to our Purple Cloud City today to treat people for free. The Sun Palace's holy science and the science of the ancient noble clans are all coming after hearing the news. Is that true? The Lunar Palace's holy daughter rarely leaves Bright Moon City. Why is she here this time? Perhaps because the topic of matching up to Xiaochun was too heavy. The topic of the inn quickly shifted to the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. The atmosphere turned lively once more. At a table by the window on the 2nd floor, a white-clad youth with an outstanding air and delicate features held a white fan in his hand. This person looked like he was only a Grandmaster-level martial sage. However, his aura was unfathomable, like the icy water in a cold pool, very misty. When the youth heard this news, the wine cup that he was holding to his lips paused slightly. He revealed an interested expression as he put down the wine cup and muttered, "Lunar Palace's holy daughter? The Lunar Palace. That holy land with a special status far away from the mundane world. Should I go and take a look? Since the outstanding talents of the Southern Sea will come after hearing the news, this is also an opportunity. I want to see how outstanding the cultivators of the same generation in the heavenly starry ocean are." This person was none other than Xiaochun, who had disguised himself and used the foundation returning art to hide his cultivation. He was on his way to the largest trading center of the Southern Sea, the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. That place was a maritime market, a sea market specially prepared for cultivators. It was boundlessly bustling and bustling. Be it illegal goods of unknown origins or treasures obtained through legitimate channels, one could quickly sell them there. Furthermore, there were many merchant associations, so one would not have to worry about suffering a loss. Xiaochun had heard that the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market was about to hold the biennial 10,000 Treasure Festival. There would be all sorts of auctions. No matter what level one would be able to find the most suitable item. Not only could one sell the goods on hand, but one could also search for treasures that one wanted at the auction. At the same time, one could also experience the grand occasion of the 10,000 Treasure Festival. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone was very suitable. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter was very famous. Since he met her by chance, there was no harm in going and taking a look. It would not take much time. Xiaochen waved his hand and called the waiter over. The waiter walked over with a joyful smile on his face. This young master had been very extravagant in the morning. After asking around for some information, he rewarded the waiter with 100 astral coins, equivalent to several years of his salary. When the waiter saw Xiaochen wave his hand again, he rushed over in a hurry, afraid of being slow. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter is really coming to Purple Cloud Island. Do you know why? The waiter smiled and said, Yes, she is coming. I heard that this holy daughter left Moon City half a year ago, searching everywhere for famous doctors. Everywhere she went, she would treat the injuries of others. This time, she is just passing through Purple Cloud Island, and will be staying there for a few days. Her destination is the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. There are several Grandmaster alchemists hired by large merchant associations there, and they are quite famous. Xiaochen sighed softly. Finding it strange, he said. Since this Lunar Palace's holy daughter dares to treat illnesses, her medical skills should be relatively good as well. Why is she looking for famous doctors? The waiter smiled and said, I find it strange as well. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter has excellent medical skills and excellent alchemy skills. She once saved several people who were on the verge of death. However, such a person is like a fairy from heaven. How can a mere manservant like me guess the thoughts of a fairy? This made sense. It would be strange if the waiter before him knew about such a difficult problem. Xiaochen smiled and asked, Do you know when she will arrive? Haha, I'm not sure. Perhaps she will arrive today. Perhaps she will arrive the day after tomorrow. Perhaps she will not stop at Purple Cloud Island at all, heading directly to the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. All these are possible. There are so many possibilities. In that case, there is no need to wait here. Xiaochen picked up his wine cup and drained it in one go. Then he placed down an astral coin and prepared to depart for the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. Everyone, quickly go to the west of the city. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter is here and has already opened her stall. Brothers, if you have any hidden injuries or internal injuries, go quickly. Otherwise, it will be a pity if you are late. Suddenly, a cultivator rushed into the inn's hall and shouted excitedly. The hall was silent for a while before it turned chaotic. The cultivators at the various tables tossed down their money and rushed to the door. Bang! In an instant, the spacious door was directly burst open, and the bustling inn was quickly emptied. Xiaochen was flabbergasted. This was too exaggerated. Actually, if one thought about it carefully, it was not exaggerated at all. A cultivator's life would always be accompanied by pain. More or less, they would leave behind internal injuries and hidden injuries that they did not know about. Xiaochen himself had been injured many times. However, his physical body was strong, reaching peak rank 4 sage body. He was confident that he would not leave behind any hidden injuries. The same could not be said for other cultivators. If they did not get rid of their hidden injuries, when they flared up, they would become a stubborn disease. No matter how good the spirit pills and miraculous medicines were, they would not be able to treat them. Aside from internal injuries and hidden injuries, there were also people who suffered setbacks when cultivating. Their meridians were in chaos. Now there was a person who could treat people's injuries for free. Furthermore, his medical skills had reached great heights. It would be strange if they did not fight to the death over him. Xiaochen pushed off the ground and leaped out of the window. Then, he somersaulted beautifully in the air and landed on the roof of the inn's top floor. Western part of the city, Xiaochen thought to himself. Then, he unfurled the freedom wings and looked towards the western part of the city. Many scenes flashed before Xiaochen's eyes like a movie. The big streets and small alleys, the sky and the ground, were all filled with cultivators rushing towards the western part of the city. The scene stopped. In front of a pavilion by a lake in the western part of the city, Many young girls in their prime stood in 2 rows, maintaining order. They all had graceful figures and pretty appearances. The young girls all had smiles on their faces, and their auras were ethereal. All of them had a gentle beauty like the moon, giving people a good impression of them. However, all of them were incredibly strong. When Xiaochen saw this, he felt startled. Unexpectedly, all of these 10-odd young girls were martial sages. There were also several arrogant young men with outstanding auras standing in front of the pavilion, helping to maintain order. These should be the outstanding talents who had come to follow the Lunar Palace's holy daughter because of her fame. There were not many cultivators in front of the pavilion yet. However, after a while, the small path in front of the lake would be filled with cultivators who had heard the news. So close yet worlds apart. Xiaochen took a step forward and silently crossed 5 kilometers. Then he drifted down from the sky. Then he landed in front of most of the cultivators and quietly lined up at the back of the line, which was not very long. The order of the place was very good. There was no clamor or noise. Every time a person stepped forward, a red rope would descend from the elegant pavilion and tie it to the cultivator's wrist. After the red rope was withdrawn, the young girls standing on both sides would receive instructions to inform the cultivator of the diagnosis. If there were ready-made medicinal pills, they would give them. If there were none, they would leave behind the medicinal pill recipe. This was very efficient. However, Xiaochen could not help feeling disappointed. Originally, he thought that by lining up for treatment, he would be able to personally see this famous holy daughter. However, when he arrived, he realized that this holy daughter did not show herself at all. Chapter 1050. Xiaochen's interest waned. He had the intention to leave. He was very confident in his body. He did not have any internal injuries or hidden illnesses. Since he could not see this woman, there was no point in continuing to line up. "It's your turn. What are you waiting for?" A melodious voice rang out. Just as Xiaochen was thinking this, he suddenly discovered that the line in front of him was already full. The various outstanding talents in front of the pavilion all revealed displeased expressions as they looked at Xiaochen, who was distracted. They thought that he was here to cause trouble. A few of them even had a faint baleful aura in their eyes. If Xiaochen was really here to cause trouble, they would not mind teaching him a lesson. Xiaochen smiled bitterly in his heart. He could only go up and go through the motions. Otherwise, there would be some small trouble. Xiaochen stepped forward and stretched out his wrist. A red string carrying a medicinal fragrance flew over from the pavilion. Whoosh! It tied itself to his wrist and tied a knot. Xiaochen looked at the red string. However, a screen blocked his view. Even his spiritual sense could only see a mist. He could not see the holy daughter's appearance behind the mist. Xiaochen felt a cool and refreshing energy flow through his body. Then the red string bounced back. The diagnosis was complete. However, unexpectedly, after a long time, no young girl came out from either side. No one came out to tell Xiaochen the results of the diagnosis. There was also no medicinal pill or pill recipe for him. The others whispered to each other, not knowing what was going on. However, Xiaochen was very clear. He did not have any hidden injuries or internal injuries. Why would they give him the medicinal pill or pill recipe? Sorry for the interruption. It looks like my body is fine. There are no hidden injuries or hidden injuries. After giving the pavilion a deep look, Xiaochen performed a cupped fist salute and prepared to take his leave. He had only come here to join in on the excitement. There was nothing else to see, so naturally, there was no need to stay. Ah, you are really interesting. The Holy Daughter said that your illness is beyond cure. Even a divine doctor cannot save you. We were just hesitating on whether to tell you or not. A young girl laughed coquettishly, saying something that Xiaochen would never have thought of. Beyond cure? How could that be? Xiaochen's physical body had been tempered and tempered several times, going through many trials and suffering 1,000 kinds of pain. After consuming 100 drops of dragon marrow, he had attained a peak rank 4 sage body. How could he be so sick that even a divine doctor couldn't save him? Young master, you still have 10 years to live. If you have any wishes, you should do them as soon as possible, said the pretty attendant softly. She also had a look of pity on her face. Xiaochen found it a little funny. The more he said, the more ridiculous he became. He even said that he only had 10 more years to live. Perhaps the Lunar Palace's holy daughter was only SO. Just look at the so-called outstanding talents in front of the pavilion. They only had appearances and were not worth mentioning. Perhaps there were no experts in the entire heavenly starry ocean. At the very least, there were no eye-catching people in the same generation. How unfortunate. At such a young age, this white-robed person is already a grandmaster-level martial sage. Clearly, he is an outstanding talent of a noble clan. He can be considered a hero. Unexpectedly, he only has 10 more years to live. He a hero? Perhaps he is overexerting himself and does not know the principle of progressing step by step. That's why he fell sick. Furthermore, he does not know that and came to the Lunar Palace's holy daughter to join in the fun. That's true. Based on his appearance, he does not look like he is here to treat his injuries. He probably thinks that his cultivation is pretty good, and that he can gain the holy daughter's favor. Who knew? The Lunar Palace's holy daughter would see through his hidden illness with one glance. Serves him right. The cultivators waiting in line all had expressions of schadenfreude in their tones. When they saw a cultivator who was far more outstanding than them only have 10 more years to live, they would definitely feel some joy. I wonder where this white-robed person came from. Based on his scholarly appearance, he might be from a Confucian noble clan, near the Heavenly Province Academy. I have never heard of such a person in the Heavenly Province Academy. Even some of the more famous Confucian noble clans do not have such a person. He probably came from a small clan. That should be the case. He does not seem to have any righteous chi on him. His clan probably used him as a sacrificial pawn. He still does not realize it, thinking that he can become a dragon in one leap. There were all sorts of discussions. It seemed like they all agreed with the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. The holy daughter said that Xiaochen only had 10 more years to live, so he really would not live past that. The 4 youths in front of the pavilion all rejoiced in Xiaochen's misfortune. With one glance, they could tell that Xiaochen was not really here to seek treatment. They felt that Xiaochen's true purpose was the same as theirs, just to get close to the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. Xiaochen gently closed the folding fan in his hand and smiled faintly. Then he prepared to turn and leave. Young master, please wait. The holy daughter still has something to say. If you are willing to cripple your cultivation and become an ordinary person, I can lend you the Lunar Palace's longevity art. I can lend young master the Lunar Palace's longevity art. I guarantee that young master will live to 100. Xiaochen originally had a smile on his face. Now his expression sank completely. This was really never-ending. These people really could say anything. Now they actually wanted him to cripple his cultivation. There should be a limit to the nonsense they spouted, all right? Xiaochen stopped walking and turned around with the white folding fan in his hand. Young master, have you made up your mind? If you are really willing to cripple your cultivation, I can let young master read 3 chapters of the Lunar Palace's longevity art. When the delicate girl who spoke saw Xiaochen turn around, she thought that he had changed his mind. She repeated what she said earlier. Her tone was gentle, but her posture contained a kind of aloof arrogance. It was as if letting Xiaochen read the first 3 chapters of the longevity art was already a great kindness and charity. Xiaochen smiled and said, Actually, I am also somewhat skilled in medicine. When the holy daughter took my pulse, she concluded that I have 10 more years to live. It is impolite not to reciprocate. I will also take the holy daughter's pulse and see if she is in a delirious state. You are so young, yet you are already speaking nonsense. The moment Xiaochen said that, everyone's expressions changed drastically. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter held an esteemed position and a high prestige. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen dared to question the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, speaking rudely. She gave you kindness and saved your life. Not only did you not feel grateful, but you even slandered the holy daughter. How bold! Where did this wild brat come from? Why don't you look at where you are? How dare you behave atrociously here? A dark-skinned youth in blue among the 4 outstanding talents in front of the pavilion drew his sword in anger. Then he charged at Xiao Chen while emitting killing qi. The people on the left and right reacted too slowly. They could not help but curse this brat for being too shrewd. This was an opportunity to show off, yet this fellow snatched it away. Without hesitation, the three of them attacked together, charging at Xiao Chen. Ha! The four strongest youths of our Purple Cloud Island are attacking together. This brat is dead for sure. It is good that he is dead. He even dares to speak rudely to the Holy Daughter. Serves him right. In any case, he will not live for more than 10 years. It is all the same if he dies earlier or later. A small clan is indeed a small clan. They have not seen much of the world, and think that Grandmaster-level martial sages are incredible. They do not know that Grandmaster-level martial sages are divided into the strong and the weak. Our Southern Sea does not need too many young Grandmaster-level martial sages like him. The girl who tried to console Xiao Chen frowned slightly when she saw the four outstanding talents of Purple Cloud Island surging with killing qi. However, she did not say anything in the end. Xiao Chen's words were simply too overboard. It turned out that they were cultivators of Purple Cloud Island. No wonder they were Grandmaster-level martial sages. No wonder they were not even comparable to the elite disciples of the Sun Palace in Xiao Chen's opinion. Grandmaster-level martial sages were indeed divided into the strong and the weak. However, these four people before Xiao Chen clearly belonged to the weakest category. Wherever they went, any Grandmaster-level martial sage would beat them into kneeling and begging for mercy. The phrase "not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth" referred to these four people. Xiao Chen opened his folding fan. He did not use the strength of the blue-robed emperor, only that of a Grandmaster-level martial sage. The instant he opened his folding fan, a layer of frost spread out from under Xiao Chen's feet. Crystalline white snowflakes drifted down from the sky. Proud of the snow bullying the frost, the thousand frost will not submit. Xiao Chen waved his folding fan, and thousands of strands of cold saber qi soared up from the ground. These strands of saber qi carried a stubborn pride as they swept out. The four outstanding talents of Purple Cloud Island bore the brunt of the attack. The saber qi covered their bodies in wounds, and their auras scattered. They fell to the ground in sorry states. When their wounds came into contact with them, they immediately cried out miserably in pain. The young girls on both sides received a significant blow as well, getting knocked back and dealing with the strands of saber qi in a fluster. If Xiao Chen had not suppressed his strength, this thousand frost battle snow would have wiped out everyone before him. However, Xiao Chen did not have a huge grudge against Xiao Chen. It was just that he was angered by the other party's nonsense, and the other party's expression of gratitude. Xiao Chen only wanted to vent his anger. He had not thought of killing anyone. Taking advantage of the flustered crowd, Xiao Chen closed his folding fan and switched it to his left hand. Then he casually pulled out a strand of hair with his right hand. Xiao Chen flicked his finger, and a boundless saber qi appeared. The strand of hair gave off a crystalline light as it extended towards the screen in the pavilion with an unparalleled aura. Behind the screen was an elegant, fairy-like woman who was as ethereal as the moon. She wore snow-white clothes as she sat behind an elegant, red wooden table. The red string in her hand shot out unhurriedly, piercing through the screen. In a thousandth of a second, it clashed with Xiao Chen's strand of hair. Bang! The two clashed. To the white-clad woman's surprise, the strand of hair pierced through her red string, making it look like a piece of bamboo, exploding into pieces. A strong saber intent spread out in all directions. The flower vases, trees, and all the other exquisite decorations in the pavilion instantly shattered into dust. However, it was clear that Xiao Chen had held back. Otherwise, it would not just be these flower vases that shattered but the entire pavilion. The shock on the white-clad woman's face had just passed when she discovered that the strand of hair had already wrapped around her wrist, gently knotting it. A middle-aged woman with an extremely strong aura hid in the shadows behind the white-clad woman. When she saw this, she wanted to make a move to break the strand of hair. After the white-clad woman recovered from her shock, she smiled faintly and waved her hand to stop the other party. After a while, a cold qi flowed through the strand of hair and traveled through the various acupoints of the white-clad woman's body, paying special attention to several acupoints in the brain. The woman felt startled in her heart. Based on the location of the cold chi traveling through the acupoints, it was clearly an extremely profound pulse reading technique. Furthermore, it was very different from current medical techniques. Chapter 1051. Outside the pavilion, Xiaochen tapped his hair with 4 fingers in a certain rhythm. Time slowly passed. Xiaochen's expression turned increasingly grave, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. The Lunar Palace disciples in front had more or less dealt with the frost saber chi binding them. Xiaochen showed a sullen expression. He could not even be bothered with the strand of hair in his hand. He tossed it aside and left, not willing to stay a moment longer, clearly preoccupied. Damn. This fellow really took the pulse of the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. He profaned the holy daughter. We can't let him escape. No one had expected Xiaochen to take the pulse of the fairy-like person in their hearts. All of them immediately flew into a rage, surrounding Xiaochen as he turned to leave. The earlier anger vanished without a trace. Xiaochen just wanted to leave. He threw out his folding fan and danced around him. The bright moon in the fan, the small bridge, and the flowing water seemed to appear in the real world. The gentle moon, the clear water, and the fluttering folding fan. Xiaochen stood on a small bridge, gradually moving further away. No one could stop him for even a moment. Inside the pavilion, a strand of black hair wound around the index finger of the white-clad woman. She stood up and went to the window. As she watched Xiaochen walk away on the moon and the bridge, her pretty eyes revealed a contemplative look. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and his white robes fluttered. Xiaochen stepped on the moonlight and rode the bridge back. The road in front of the lake was in chaos. The people who blocked Xiaochen all suffered significant injuries. Xiaochen, who was in a rush to leave with a heavy heart, did not control his strength well, resulting in several severe injuries. The female Lunar Palace disciples moved about, checking on the injuries and treating them. Chaos reigned everywhere. The white-clad woman in front of the pavilion frowned slightly. The beautiful middle-aged woman with an outstanding aura behind her stepped forward and whispered, "Bingyun, this person is an expert. He might have hidden his cultivation." Yu Bingyun felt it was strange. She asked, "In Aunt Bai's eyes he is an expert as well?" The beautiful, noble, and graceful Auntie Bai smiled and said, "It's just a feeling. This person is definitely someone with a story. Unfortunately, 10 years are about to pass, and the heavens are jealous of him." Yu Bingyun lowered her head and looked at the strand of fine black hair wrapped around her index finger. She said softly, "It is possible that he is the person we are looking for?" "Really?" The woman Yu Bingyun addressed as Aunt Bai paled somewhat. "Whether it is true or not, we still have to ask him in person. Even if he did not leave his name, I have never heard of this person in the heavenly starry ocean. Judging from his attire, I wonder if the Heavenly Province Academy's young master Qingshu knows him?" Yu Bingyun looked at the strand of hair between her fingers, feeling that it was a pity. Suddenly, she looked up from the window and saw a figure rushing over in the distance at lightning speed. He was like a soaring true dragon, stepping on the auspicious clouds and withdrawing the strong winds. His roar was like the roar of a true dragon, reverberating in all directions. The many injured cultivators below immediately recognized him. They could not help but reveal astonished expressions. "It's the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master, Hai Tian." Indeed, when the Lunar Palace's holy daughter arrived at Purple Cloud Island, the outstanding talents of the Southern Sea will definitely come after hearing the news. The Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace was a huge faction of the Southern Sea. When Neptune was still around, it was even stronger than the immortal Holy Land's Zodiac Hall. Naturally, the purpose of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master was self-evident. He was here for the Lunar Palace's holy daughter Yu Bingyun. Suddenly, a flickering lightning-attributed flame lit up in the western sky. A lightning-attributed flame tore through the sky and headed for the pavilion as well. The young master of an ancient noble clan, the scion of the Gongsun clan, Gongsun Yen. A strong wind blew in the northern sky. A berserk aura spread out together with the strong wind. Everyone could feel a prideful aura that looked down on the world. "It's another ancient noble clan, the scion of the Shangguan clan, Shangguan Yin." Soundlessly, A person flew over from the east. He didn't seem to be making any big movements, but as he moved, the sky behind him moved forward bit by bit, giving off an oppressive feeling, as if the might of the heavens were descending. The scion of the Xia clan is here as well. The many cultivators on the ground erupted with excitement. In such a short time, nearly all the factions of the Southern Sea that could rival the immortal Holy Lands had arrived. This was a true outstanding talent. The 4 people from Purple Cloud Island were far inferior compared to him. The reputation of the Lunar Palace's holy daughter filled the sky with boundless charm. Just as everyone thought that this was the end, something happened in the central sky. A dazzling golden sun slowly descended, overshadowing the radiance of the blazing sun. Beside him there was a full moon. The sun and the moon descended together, and the sun and moon shone together, illuminating the surroundings. With such an obvious mysterious phenomenon, no one in the Southern Sea would not know. This was the holy sun of the Southern Sea's immortal Holy Land, the Zodiac Hall's holy daughter, Fu Hongyao. One was the top true inheritor of the Sun Palace, and the other was the top true inheritor of the Moon Palace. They were the most outstanding talents of the same generation in the Southern Sea. This was especially so for the holy son Chuyang. He had been in closed-door cultivation for the past few years. His strength was unfathomable. Rumor had it that the location of his closed-door cultivation was the blazing sun. The palace master of the Zodiac Hall, the Prime Emperor Wu Jinxuani, personally guarded him. The moment the sun and moon appeared, the auras of the others immediately paled in comparison to the two, becoming slightly inferior. As the group approached the pavilion in front of the lake, they seemed to come to a tacit understanding and scattered their auras, withdrawing their sharpness. This was a show of respect for the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. They did not act presumptuously. They landed firmly and reported their identities, waiting quietly. The first to land was the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's Hai Tian. When he saw Gong Sun Yen, he smiled faintly and said, "It looks like Brother Gongsuan's Thunderflame War body made a breakthrough again. If you have time, let's exchange pointers." Gong Sun Yen smiled calmly and said, "It is so. However, if Brother Hai Tian wants to exchange pointers, I can accompany you at any time." The two's tone was calm. However, as they spoke, they clashed with each other, giving off a faint smell of gunpowder. "Haha. Brother Hai Tian, I heard that the Blue Dragon King recently killed 2 of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's blue-robed emperors. Is that true?" A strong wind blew, and the scion of the ancient Shangguan clan, Shangguan Yun, landed quietly. He smiled at Hai Tian. The scion of the Xia clan, Xia Hanfeng, who wanted to arrive with heaven's might, had just landed. When he heard this, he also looked at Hai Tian curiously. The news of the Blue Dragon King Shaoqin killing 2 of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's blue-robed emperors had spread like wildfire. These outstanding talents were all curious as to whether this was true or not. Hai Tian felt stifled, and anger appeared on his face. Just as he did not know how to answer, he saw the holy sons and holy daughters of Zodiac Hall land together. Hai Tian raised his eyebrows, and his lips curled up. He said, "Shangguan Yun, I think you should go and ask Chuyang." The Blue Dragon King nearly disfigured Fu Hongyao with one punch during his king conferral ceremony. Is there such a thing? Shangguan Yin glared at Hai Tian. Only a fool would mention this matter to Chuyang. When Chuyang and Fu Hongyao landed in front of the pavilion, they acted like they had not heard what Shangguan Yin said, and headed straight for the doors. "Friends, the holy daughter is startled today, and the pavilion is in a mess. Aside from Miss Red Yao, it is not convenient for the other young masters to meet." The Lunar Palace's female disciple standing guard at the doors said apologetically to the group. Fu Hongyao was acquainted with the Lunar Palace's holy daughter in the first place. Naturally, Yu Bingyan would not reject Fu Hongyao. Under the gazes of the others, Fu Hongyao entered the pavilion. The holy daughter is startled? Could it be that someone dares to cause trouble in the pavilion of the Lunar Palace's holy daughter? When the group saw the chaotic scene of the Lunar Palace's disciples treating the injured in the crowd, their expressions sank. That might be the case. After asking around, the expressions of Hai Tian and the others changed drastically. How audacious! Where did this fellow come from? To think that he does not know the immensity of the heavens and earth, even daring to take the holy daughter's pulse. Hai Tian said angrily. The expressions of Shangguan Yun and the others were unsightly as well. Yu Bingyun being profaned in their southern sea was a slap to the faces of all the outstanding talents of the southern sea. In the future, during the Four Seas Hero Gathering, the many outstanding talents of the other sea domains would definitely mock them in Bright Moon City because of this. We have to find this person. Otherwise, we will lose a lot of face, Shangguan Yun, who was at odds with Hai Tian, said, something that he rarely did. Naturally, the others did not mind. This was both a good and a bad thing. In this day and age, no one could truly profane the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. How could they miss out on such an opportunity to show off before the holy daughter? The few of them acted in concert with their words. However, they were all thinking about how to obtain the greatest benefits for themselves in this matter. Only Chu Yang of the Zodiac Hall remained silent. He simply could not think of anyone in the heavenly starry ocean who dared to profane Yu Bingyun. Could it be someone from the Black Sea? That's not right. There is no such person in the Black Sea. If there were, I would definitely know who it was. Perhaps this matter is not as simple as it appears on the surface. Thousands of meters away, at the top floor of an inn, 3 or 4 dissolute cultivators with evil auras sat at a table by the window. They all had smiles on their faces as they looked at the pavilion from afar. In the entire history of the Lunar Palace, even back to the time of Neptune, only one holy daughter has ever fallen in love with a mortal. These people are really delusional. Humph. What outstanding talent. They look bright and awe-inspiring. But in front of a woman, you've become so timid and polite. You don't deserve to be called a prodigy at all. That brother in white is still the best. He suits my taste. Since ancient times, he is the only one who dared to forcefully take the pulse of the holy daughter. Haha. Well said. I wonder if second brother can catch up to this person? I really want to make friends with him. He definitely can. Second brother's movement technique is excellent. The same thing had a different result in the eyes of different people. At this moment, Xiaochen clearly did not know what kind of ripples his impromptu actions had caused. However, even if he knew, he would not care too much about it, given how preoccupied he was. Xiaochen flew all the way out of Purple Cloud Island. After traveling for an unknown distance, he stopped before a lone island. The folding fan fluttered as Xiaochen stretched out his hand and grasped it. The bright moon, the bridge, and the flowing water were no longer there. His figure drifted over and landed on the tallest peak of the island. Standing at the summit, Xiaochen looked at the boundless sea. He frowned heavily, thinking about something. Xiaochen, what's wrong? Ao Jiao had long noticed that something was wrong with Xiaochen's expression, so she could not help asking. Xiaochen gently fanned himself and said, that Lunar Palace's holy daughter did not speak nonsense. At the very least, there was no need for her to do so. The longevity art is indeed a holy manual for maintaining one's health. It is worthy of such a grand display. Chapter 1052. That is to say, you misunderstood her? Ao Jiao smiled. Then she suddenly reacted and said, that's impossible. How can you only have 10 years of lifespan? After you break through to the blue-robed emperor, your lifespan will increase to 1,000 years. Xiaochen thought for a while before replying. Lifespan is divided into 2 types. One is natural lifespan, and the other is physiological lifespan. Natural lifespan is easy to understand. Ordinary people's natural lifespan is 70 or 80 years. As cultivators break through their cultivation realms, their natural lifespan will increase. Physiological lifespan is the lifespan of the body. Normally speaking, the two are the same. However, sometimes, there are accidents that cause the physiological lifespan to exceed the natural lifespan by too much. She is 20 years old, but her body is that of a 70 or 80-year-old. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter should be referring to my physiological lifespan. Ao Jiao felt that this was incredible. She asked doubtfully, what exactly did you see when you took the holy daughter's pulse for you to change so much? When Xiaochen recalled that scene, he was still deeply shocked. After a long time he said, Her physiological lifespan is like that of a baby. If there are no accidents, she will remain like that for the next 10 years. How can that be? She looks like she is at least 20 years old. Xiaochen did not believe it either. However, that aura could not be wrong. The alchemy section of the Compendium of Cultivation had some knowledge of medicine. The pulse-taking technique recorded there could not be wrong. It was precisely because of this that Xiaochen started to take the Lunar Palace's holy daughter's words seriously, no longer treating them as nonsense. After Xiaochen calmed down and thought about it, he realized that the other party did not know him, so there was no need for her to speak nonsense. It would not do her any good. After that, he used this pulse-taking technique to check his physiological lifespan. Although it looked strong, the physiological lifespan of a peak rank 4 sage body did indeed have less than 10 years left. Xiaochen had never thought about this problem before. The alchemy section of the Compendium of Cultivation only had a brief introduction to this, so he had not paid much attention to it. Ao Jiao came to a realization and said, "I think I know what the problem is. There's a problem with your physical body cultivation. You endured all kinds of pain and tempered your body thousands of times. When your physical body improved by leaps and bounds, you didn't pay attention to the way to nourish your body." Xiaochen's physical body cultivation was indeed somewhat horrifying. At such a young age, he had already attained a peak rank 4 sage body. Xiaochen had started cultivating his physical body in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion from the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. If he calculated the time, it had been less than 10 years. However, in the past 10 years, he had not done anything to nourish his body. Instead, he had used heavenly materials and earthly treasures to nourish his body. This was also because he had never met a true master on his path of cultivation. Ao Jiao had a lot of experience, but the Thunder King did not cultivate his corporeal body and knew very little about this aspect, so he could not help Xiaochen. Back when Xiaochen first advanced to Martial Monarch, he had to refine his quintessence twice for each minor realm, enduring boundless pain. That path established the purity of Xiaochen's quintessence. Even after he converted it to heavenly sage laws, his quintessence was still much denser than that of cultivators of the same generation. However, the damage to his body would be immense. At that time, Xiaochen felt that he would be fine once he endured it. Going further, when Xiaochen was in the lower realm, he had rashly used the strength character formula. 33-fold combat prowess was heaven-defying. As an inferior grade martial monarch, he had forced back a martial sage. Perhaps at that time, the seeds of danger had already been planted. Now looking at the myriad heaven divine fist, deities descending, Xiaochen had been using the 10-fold combat prowess wantonly. He had probably unknowingly drained his physiological lifespan. 10-fold combat prowess, 33-fold combat prowess, such heaven-defying existences, should have a price. Suddenly, Xiaochen recalled that in his previous life, there had also been a heaven-defying martial arts expert on Earth. At a young age, he had been unrivaled, famous throughout the world. However, he had died young and mysteriously. There was a rumor that he had cultivated excessively, undergoing too much cruel training. The two remained silent. After a while, Xiaochen recovered his emotions. He smiled and said, "It's fine. It is not too late to understand now. At the very least, I know of 2 ways to salvage the situation." "Which 2? "Naturally, the first is the Lunar Palace's longevity art. Unfortunately, that is the Lunar Palace's sacred canon. Outsiders can only read 3 chapters at most. It is impossible to read the entire book. Hence, there was no need to even think about the first method. How could the Lunar Palace lend its inherited sacred canon to outsiders? Snatching it was even more impossible. The Lunar Palace had many experts. It would be better to just marry a holy daughter. As for the second method, there is no need to beg others. It is my own blue dragon body nourishing art. Now that I think about it, I somewhat understand why this body tempering cultivation technique is called the body nourishing art and not the body tempering art. The foundation of the body tempering art is clearly to nourish the body." When Ao Jiao heard this, she smiled and said, "Really? So, you already thought of this solution long ago?" "You startled me." Xiaochen smiled helplessly in his heart. Although that was what he said, he had exhausted too much of his physiological lifespan. It had already reached a point where it could not be reversed. Even if the blue dragon body nourishing art was useful, it might be too late to realize it now. Xiaochen was not sure. However, he did not want Ao Jiao to worry too much, so he purposely said this. The most reliable solution was still the Lunar Palace's longevity art. Just at this moment, the sound of something tearing came from behind. Xiaochen frowned slightly and turned around to look. Xiaochen saw a stout, dark-skinned man giving off a ruffian aura quickly flying towards him. Xiaochen did not see any killing chi from this person, or any killing intent in his eyes. Instead, he had a strange expression. How should Xiaochen put it? This expression was one of worship. Xiaochen felt suspicious. However, he kept his guard up and let the stout man fly in front of him. Ha! Brother, your speed is extraordinarily fast. If we had not paused on this island for a while, I would have lost you. The dark-skinned man stopped and laughed heartily. Xiaochen smiled to himself. This person is really straightforward. I wonder why he is following me all the way here? Brother, I think very highly of you. Come with me to kidnap the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. The stout man said seriously just as Xiaochen thought this. Xiaochen could not help but want to laugh. This person could no longer be described as straightforward. If not for this stout man being stronger than that Sun Palace elite disciple, Xiaochen would have thought that he had run into a madman. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter could not be casually kidnapped. Not to mention the holy daughter, Xiaochen also sensed a great perfection blue-robed emperor expert by her side. If Xiaochen managed to kidnap her, given the Lunar Palace's reputation, there would be no place for him in the entire heavenly starry ocean. Furthermore, the Lunar Palace disciples all had secret techniques to protect themselves. There would be no benefit in kidnapping such a person. After thinking for a while, Xiaochen still smiled and said, Brother, thank you for thinking so highly of me. However, I do not have such ambitions. Furthermore, I still have important matters to attend to. You will have to find someone else for such a big matter. The dark-skinned man revealed an expression of extreme regret. He said, How unfortunate. Many people of the righteous and righteous factions want to do something but cannot. Brother, you managed to do it easily. It is too unfortunate that you do not join us. The stout man did not give up. He continued to try to persuade Xiaochen to do great things with him. Finally, when he saw Xiaochen's firm attitude, he smiled helplessly and said, Brother has things to do, so I will not insist. However, with one look, I can tell that brother is a kindred spirit. Tell me your name, and if you have time in the future, come to the Black Sea. I, Batu, will definitely take good care of you. The Black Sea. Xiaochen felt excited. That was the place with the richest resources in the entire oceanic world. It was precisely because of the Black Sea that the many major factions of the heavenly starry ocean did not care about the resources of the starry heavens. To them, the resources of the Black Sea were an inexhaustible treasure trove. There was no need for them to go to the starry heavens. However, the Black Sea was also a place for great bandits and peak loose cultivators. This Batu before Xiaochen did not look like a loose cultivator. He did not have the baleful aura of a loose cultivator. He should be the descendant of a famous great bandit. Xiaochen was willing to befriend such a person. He smiled and said, I am Mo Yun. We will meet again in the future. For a very long time, Mo Yun would be Xiaochen's alias when he traveled the heavenly starry ocean. Batu watched as Xiaochen flew in the direction of the 10,000 treasure sea market. Only when Xiaochen's figure disappeared did he turn his head back. He still had an expression of pity on his face. A sea market, a market on the sea, referred to a cultivator's market that existed only in the oceanic world. There were many sea markets of various sizes in the southern sea. However, the most famous one had to be the 10,000 treasure sea market. Xiaochen followed the sea map and walked on the water. His white robes and folding fan made him look unremarkable in the vast sea. As Xiaochen got closer to the 10,000 treasure sea market, the number of cultivators he met increased. These people were in groups of 2 or 3, discussing the upcoming 10,000 treasure festival. Not only were there auctions for the various levels, but there were also professional auctions such as secret treasure auctions, medicinal pill auctions, spirit weapon auctions, and so on. Aside from these, there were also all sorts of appraisal sessions. If one had good judgment and a good character, one might be able to obtain some pleasant surprises. The biennial 10,000 Treasure Festival was considered a grand event in the Southern Sea. Many cultivators would rush over. Xiaochen did not travel very fast. After half a month, he finally saw the landmark of the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. A gigantic statue stood on the surface of the vast sea. Its upper body was above the water, and it was tens of thousands of zhang tall. The statue was dressed like an immortal cultivator from the immortal epoch. It wore Buddhist robes, and 4 carefree scarves floated above its head. The statue's left hand was stretched out in the air, and 2 fingers of its right hand formed a sword. The statue stared into the distance, piercing through space and the barrier of the sky as it looked at the distant starry heavens. The statue seemed to be forming some kind of hand seal, giving the impression that a living person had suddenly petrified after being magnified countless times. The statue froze in the river of time, trapped for a lifetime. This kind of scene could only be seen from a very far distance. However, when one got closer, one would not be able to see it clearly because it was too vast and tall. The entire 10,000 Treasure Sea Market was made up of thousands of islands of various sizes around the statue. The core island was the palm of the statue. That was a city, and the peak auctions were held there. Merchant ships stood in great numbers, and the flags of thousands of merchant associations fluttered in the wind. It was bustling, noisy, and vast. This was the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. Chapter 1053. Xiaochen had a clear goal. He flew towards 10,000 Treasure City. The instant he flew into the air, he felt a formless pressure. This pressure came from the statue itself. Without the strength of a martial sage, one would not even be qualified to step into this 10,000 Treasure City. The higher Xiaochen flew, the greater the pressure. If he wanted to reach the top of the statue, he would have to be at least as strong as the blue-robed emperor. Naturally, just flying to the top of the 10,000 Treasure City did not pose any pressure to Xiaochen. The mysterious pressure was no different from air to him. In just an instant, Xiaochen arrived above the palm. When he looked down, he could see the entire bustling and exquisite 10,000 Treasure City. There was a palace on each of the 5 fingers of the statue. The 5 city lords of 10,000 Treasure City resided in these palaces. The palace on the thumb was the most magnificent and vast. That was the residence of the top city lord, the Treasure Master. The Treasure Master's identity was mysterious and venerated. He traveled everywhere and rarely showed himself. Right now, his grandson was in charge of all major and minor matters. The one on the pinky finger was the 5th city lord, the one on the ring finger was the 4th city lord, the one on the index finger was the 3rd city lord, and the one on the middle finger was the 2nd city lord. He broke through the might of 10,000 Treasure City in one breath. At such a young age, he already has an overwhelming wealth chi. This is a very important guest. Ziying, go and entertain him personally. Do not delay him. Do your best to pull all his business into the merchant association we control. An old man in the palace on the pinky finger suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze penetrated 50 kilometers, and clearly saw the white-clad Xiaochen. This person seems to be only a grandmaster-level martial sage. Is there a need to send your daughter out personally? The girl named Ziying felt somewhat suspicious. Several great grandmaster-level martial sages, and even the blue-robed emperor had appeared, but her father had not even opened his eyes. Haha. Haha, hurry up and go. If you wait any longer, when the other city lords react, you won't have this chance anymore. The old man smiled gently. His tone was gentle, but it contained a strong might. This was not an order, but it was irresistible. Ziying rejoiced in her heart. When her father said this, it would definitely be right. Aside from the mysterious treasure master, the other 4 city lords were all merchant associations from outside. An evaluation would be held every 10 years, and if the profits that the Chamber of Commerce brought to the treasure city were too low, they would lose the right to be the city lord. This was the rule set by the treasure master. No matter how strong the merchant association's backing was, It still had to obediently follow the rules when it came to the 10,000 Treasure Sea market. The profits of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion's branch in Treasure City had been declining for the past few years. It had fallen once every 10 years, and it had already fallen from the second-ranked city lord to the fifth-ranked. If it continued to drop like this, she would probably lose her right to be the fifth city lord. A large order could reduce the pressure on Ziying. Without any warning, just as Xiao Chen was about to land, a 7-colored bridge extended from the distance to Xiao Chen's feet. Rainbow light flickered. A gorgeous rainbow bridge stretched across the sky. It was beautiful to the extreme. 5-colored heavenly flowers floated down from the sky. Many pairs of eyes in the treasure city below immediately looked up into the sky. 5-colored heavenly flowers and a 7-colored rainbow bridge. It was unknown which esteemed guest had been intercepted by one of the 5 city lords and received with the highest form of etiquette. The cultivators in the city were all martial sages at the very least. When they infused their mental energy into their eyes, they could clearly see Xiao Chen, who was very far away. This person wore white robes and held a white fan. He looked delicate and pretty, no more than 30 years old. He was a grandmaster-level martial sage. When one looked carefully at this person's face, no one had heard of him before. Several people immediately felt suspicious. How could an unknown outstanding talent receive such a grand reception from the 9 Cauldron Pavilion? The 9 Cauldron Pavilion probably misjudged him again. His business has been declining for the past few years. After this 10,000 Treasure Festival, he will probably lose his position as the city lord. Such mockery rang out continuously in the Treasure City. The 9 Cauldron Pavilion had definitely misjudged him by receiving a Grandmaster-level martial sage with such a grand reception. They would become a laughingstock and become the joke of this 10,000 Treasure Festival. When Xiao Chen heard Ao Jiao's explanation as he faced the 7-colored bridge, he roughly understood what was going on. This was really strange. Despite being a Grandmaster-level martial sage and not being famous, he could cause such a huge commotion. This was fine as well. With someone to receive him, he could save himself some trouble. Xiao Chen was somewhat confident in the ability of the Foundation returning art to hide his cultivation. As long as he ran into some special secret treasures, it would be hard for him to be discovered. Even if he was discovered, it would not matter. With the Peak Thunder Dragon Steps and the Freedom Wings, he was confident of leaving easily even if Emperor Wu came personally. A pretty girl arrived on the bridge. This was the manager of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion in the Treasure City, Ziying. This lady is Ziying, the manager of 10,000 City's 9 Cauldron Pavilion. Might I ask for young master's name? The girl named Ziying gave off the impression of a capable person with one glance. Her aura was very similar to Ying Qiong's. As Ziying spoke, her actions were very graceful and charming. While she was respectful, she did not give off an overly flattering feeling. Perhaps it was because Ziying's aura was very similar to Ying Qiong's, but Xiao Chen had a very good first impression of this girl. He performed a cupped fist salute as he held the folding fan in his hand and said, "I do not dare to claim my distinguished name. I am Mo Yin. You can just address me casually." The two stood on the 7-colored bridge like it was flat ground. Then the 7-colored bridge slowly shrank. It carried the two further away, drifting down towards the palace on the pinky finger. After chatting for a while, Ziying felt that Mo Yun's way of speaking was extraordinary. Her father definitely did not misjudge him. It looks like young Master Mo came because of the 10,000 Treasure Festival. I wonder if you have any special requests this time? The 9 Cauldron Pavilion is one of the top 5 merchant associations in 10,000 Treasure City. As for the backer of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion, it is considered a peak merchant association in the entire Heavenly Starry Ocean. After chatting for a while, Ziying moved to the main topic. After a pause, she continued, "If young master has any requests, the 9 Cauldron Pavilion will definitely be able to fulfill them." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and opened his folding fan. "I do indeed have some special requests. I need secret treasures containing dragon souls, in large quantities." Ziying felt somewhat disappointed. Even for Peak King grade secret treasures containing dragon souls, barring special exceptions, they would only be worth tens of millions of astral coins. This was a large order. However, it was still far from the large order that she had anticipated. As for what Xiaochen said about large quantities, she did not care too much about it. Secret treasures were meant to be used. Cultivators could only use 1 or 2 at most. How large could the quantity be? Even so, Ziying's expression did not change. With her good upbringing, she would not put on a vile expression over such a small matter. However, this time, Ziying had embarrassed herself greatly. The merchant associations of the other 4 city lords would definitely mock her for a long time. Ziying sighed in her heart. Then she smiled and said, "What kind of secret treasures containing dragon souls does young Master Mo need? I'll give you 10 million black astral coins first. Help me purchase them. If you do well, I still have a batch of goods worth tens of millions of black astral coins for you to deal with." Xiaochen did not know what Ziying was thinking. His tone was calm as he continued speaking. When Ziying heard this, she was slightly stunned even though she was used to seeing big scenes. 10 million black astral coins meant 100 million astral coins. There was still another 100 million black astral coins to sell. Based on Xiaochen's tone, it sounded like 100 million black astral coins were not enough. This was a huge business deal. After this transaction, the profits from the offerings might be enough for the 9 Cauldron Pavilion to become the 2nd city lord. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Xiaochen frowned. Dragons were hidden in the depths. The sea hid dragons. It should not be too difficult to collect secret treasures containing dragon souls in the heavenly starry ocean. Ziying smiled and said excitedly, "No, absolutely not. Come, let's go down and discuss in detail." Whoosh. Just at this moment, 3 7-colored bridges streaked across the sky at the same time. Heavenly flowers fell from the sky above 10,000 Treasure City, looking like snowflakes drifting in the air. The glazed lights of various colors illuminated the entire sky. Xiaochen and Ziying, who were about to descend to the palace on the pinky finger, turned their heads to look. They saw a group of outstanding talents accompanying the Lunar Palace's holy daughter outside 10,000 Treasure City. Everyone there had a bright name. The faction behind them could cause clouds and rain in the southern sea, or even the entire heavenly starry ocean. Whoosh! An even more resplendent and dazzling 9-colored bridge flew through the air, looking very gorgeous. Unexpectedly, the palace on the pinky finger of the treasure master also sent out an invitation, something that was rarely seen. Instantly, the entire 10,000 Treasure City stirred. Everyone forgot about the 7-colored bridge that the 9 Cauldron Pavilion sent out. Clearly, the treasure master's 9-colored bridge was directed at the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. On the Rainbow Bridge, 8 divine steeds covered in flames pulled ancient war chariots, slowly moving forward. When the people of the other 4 cities saw the people of the treasure master's residence personally coming out, they smiled faintly and tacitly took a step back. They landed at the back of the golden war chariot and went to welcome the holy daughter's group. They glanced at Ziying, and a few of them smiled mockingly at her. They laughed at her for making an error in judgment. To think that Ziying treated a Grandmaster-level martial sage as a financial backer. What a joke. However, the main character had already changed. The various city lords wanted to rope in the holy daughter's group, but they could not do so. They could only rope in 1 or 2 people. A cold-faced youth with an extraordinary aura rode on the golden war chariot. He crossed the 9-colored rainbow bridge and arrived before the Lunar Palace's holy daughter's group. This cold-faced youth was the treasure master's grandson Yi Ling. He was now the manager of 10,000 Treasure City. He was currently conversing with the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. Ziying smiled faintly. Now that she had a major client like Xiaochen, she did not need to care about what others thought of her. All she needed to do was silently make a fortune. When Xiaochen saw Fu Hongyao beside the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, he was mildly startled. If he guessed right, the man beside her should be the strongest person of the Sun Palace's younger generation. Young Master Mo, we should discuss the details of the secret treasures containing dragon souls. Ziying reminded him in a soft voice with a faint smile. Xiaochen turned his head back and smiled. Let's go then. In the VIP room of the 5th City Lord's residence, Xiaochen first asked around about the market for secret treasures containing dragon souls in the heavenly starry ocean, to see if it was as rumored. The results gave Xiao Chen a pleasant surprise. There were hidden dragons in the depths, and the sea hid dragons. This saying was not wrong at all. The secret treasures containing dragon souls in the heavenly starry ocean were much easier to find than in the Kunlun continent. Hence, he had to focus on King Great secret treasures. I wonder if there will be secret treasures containing true dragon souls in this 10,000 treasure festival. Chapter 1054. Xiao Chen asked with some anticipation. Ziying smiled apologetically and said, I don't think so. True dragons are hard to find and nearly extinct. Naturally, a true dragon's soul is even harder to find. However, I will ask around. It's fine. Xiao Chen waved his hand. He was just asking casually. If there was, it would be a pleasant surprise. If there was none, there was no need to be upset. The two started to discuss the contract. Xiao Chen took out the contract that Ziying made and took a look. There were no loopholes in it, so he signed it and handed the 10 million black astral coins to the other party. Ziying rejoiced. With this deal of 10 million black astral coins, the 9 Cauldron Pavilion would not have to worry about business for half a year. Ziying put away the contract and the black astral coins and took the opportunity to ask, I heard from young Master Mo that you still have a batch of treasures to sell. How about we settle them together? Don't worry. As long as the 9 Cauldron Pavilion can help me settle this within one day, I will definitely hand the treasures I want to sell to your merchant association. Naturally, Xiao Chen was not stupid. He had to use something to pressure the other party. Otherwise, if the other party could not do it within one day, he would not be able to deal with it. Ziying smiled and took her leave. Before she left, she called over 2 pretty girls with voluptuous figures to serve Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen waved his hand and got the 2 maidservants to wait outside, waiting for his instructions. Deep into the night, Xiao Chen drew his lunar shadow saber in a cultivation room in the courtyard for honored guests. He calmly executed the flawless saber technique, trying to infuse the will of ice into the 4-season saber technique's winter saber. Logically speaking, Xiao Chen should not be so calm. On the way to the 10,000 treasure sea market, he had consumed and refined a longevity fruit in his hand. As he expected, the longevity fruit only increased his natural lifespan, and not his physiological lifespan. It would not be of any help to his current situation. Right now, if the blue dragon body nourishing art was not effective, 10 years would not be laughable at all. Xiao Chen had not reached the peak yet, had not re-established the Dragon's Gate, had not seen everything in this world, and still had many regrets. How could 10 years be enough? It looks like it will work. In the vast underground cultivation room, Xiao Chen revealed a joyful smile as he watched the destructive power of the first fusion of the winter saber and the will of ice. He had always been like this. No matter how many regrets he only had 10 years to live. He just had to face it calmly. Life still had to go on. There was no need to bemoan the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind. There was no need to be depressed and regretful. In these 12 years he had walked many paths, met many people, and made countless choices. He had never regretted any of his choices. There was no other reason. As long as he knew what he wanted, there was no need to be so conflicted. Dressed in white, Xiao Chen was even colder than the snow. His saber was cold, he was cold, but his heart was not cold. He was sharp and hot-blooded. As Xiao Chen's mental state improved, the great perfection saber soul in the will of thunder in his sea of consciousness became increasingly dense. It seemed like it would make another breakthrough soon. Xiao Chen casually stabbed his saber into the ground. Then he started practicing his palm technique, 1,000-year flame, amid the heavy snow. This move was Xiao Chen's original creation. When he sent out his palm strike, it showed sorrow and joy, parting and reunions, expressing lofty sentiments and hot-bloodedness. He could spread out his comprehensions, his lifetime's lofty sentiments, joy, anger, sorrow, and joy with one palm strike. This palm technique could still evolve in many different ways. Joy, anger, sorrow, joy, parting, and reunions. There should be many more ways. For example, at this moment, Xiao Chen thought of parting and the 10-year sorrow. As grief spread through his palm technique clearly deviated from the initial hot-bloodedness, tyranny, and berserk destruction of the thousand-year flame. In its place was a boundless melancholy of parting. A faint grief lingered in Xiao Chen's heart, flowing into his every move. The fluttering of his clothes and hair seemed to speak of melancholy. The cycle banner, which was connected to Xiao Chen's mind, suddenly unfurled in the universe ring. The astral pearl refined by the grief throne shone brightly. The snowflakes were no longer there. Thousands upon thousands of blood-red remnant flowers drifted in the air. The remnant flowers were like blood, filled with grief. A scarlet moon rose up behind Xiao Chun, filling his eyes with a red light. Grief filled everything he saw. Time was like a river, gushing endlessly. There was a moon by the riverside, and a lone boat moved along the river, treading on the moon. Time flowed by. 10,000 years passed. The people on the boat lived and died, changing again and again. Only the moon reigned supreme. Only the moon existed. Who saw the moon for the first time by the riverside? When did the moon at the riverside first shine on people? Generations passed by endlessly. The moon at the riverside remained the same every year. Under the illumination of the scarlet moonlight, Xiao Chen's white robes looked very eye-catching among the thousands of scarlet remnant flowers, showing a different kind of grief. Thousand-year death. I have a palm strike that speaks only of sorrow, not joy. With this palm strike, Xiao Chen scattered all his grief and melancholy. He felt carefree, sweeping away all the knots in his heart. The grief on Xiao Chen's body vanished. There seemed to be boundless hope in the faint flowing light, creating all life. Without a sound, even the dust that was tiny to the point it couldn't be seen with the naked eye within the underground cultivation room was transformed into nothingness by this palm strike. The scarlet moonlight vanished, and the withered remnant flowers disappeared. The underground cultivation room was silent and empty, and the air was unprecedentedly fresh. This move shall be called thousand-year death. Xiao Chun withdrew his hand and sheathed the saber he stabbed into the ground. Then he walked out of the cultivation room with a trace of calmness. No matter how much grief or melancholy one felt, they should not remain in one's heart for long. After the grief passed, there would still be a bright sunny day. Otherwise, one would fall into the demonic Tao, blaming heaven and others, walking to the extremes. The instant Xiao Chun turned around and left the cultivation room, he did not notice that thousands of flowers silently bloomed in the cultivation room. The remnant flowers lost their scarlet color and turned green, spreading everywhere. When the morning sun rose, Xiao Chun closed his eyes and rested for a while. Then, Ziying appeared before Xiao Chun with a smile on her face. Young Master Mo, I have already used up all 10 million black astral coins. I have collected a total of 100 king-grade secret treasures and 1,000 sage-grade secret treasures for you. Furthermore, I heard that there will be an emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon soul being auctioned during the 10,000 Treasure Festival. Unfortunately, it is damaged. Xiao Chun received the spatial ring that Ziying handed over. Then he scanned it with his spiritual sense and found that the other party was right. He smiled faintly and said, "Damaged? That suits me. What's the price? I want to buy it at once." Ziying felt somewhat surprised. She did not know why Xiao Chun cared so much about a secret treasure with a dragon soul, not even letting go of a damaged one. 2 million black astral coins is simply too high. I have seen that emperor-grade secret treasure. Aside from the dragon soul, it is already damaged beyond recognition. As long as the dragon soul was still there, it was fine. 2 million black astral coins was not a high price. An idea formed in Xiao Chen's mind. He smiled and said, "The 9 Cauldron Pavilion is indeed very efficient. They managed to settle everything in one night. It looks like I have to give my goods to Miss Ziying." Ziying felt anticipation in her heart. She had mobilized the entire 9 Cauldron Pavilion in 10,000 Treasure City, just to see what goods Xiao Chun would take out. Bang! 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 Xiao Chun placed 9 jade strips on the table. Then he smiled gently at Ziying and gestured for her to take a seat. Ziying picked up a jade strip doubtfully and sent in her mental energy. In merely a moment, her expression changed drastically. She quickly put down this jade strip and checked the other 8 jade strips. Ziying was completely stunned. The 9 jade strips actually all contained profound martial techniques. This completely surpassed her imagination. Aside from the 1,000 frost battle snow, which Xiaochen cultivated, he took out all 10 jade strips containing profound martial techniques. Profound martial techniques were existences that surpassed heaven-ranked martial techniques. Regular cultivators would not even have heard of them. They would only appear in the top auctions. The number of profound martial techniques was an important factor that attracted the peak geniuses. Of course, Xiaochen had copied the profound martial techniques in these 9 jade strips. He had copies of them, which he could pass on to others on Heavenly Star Island. It looked like the buyer was at a disadvantage. However, if one did not buy them, many people would fight over them. This was a scarce strategic resource. No matter which sect it was, they would never complain about having more profound martial techniques. The moment they appeared in an auction, they would immediately fetch sky-high prices. There was always a demand but no supply. Ziying's voice trembled somewhat as she asked uncertainly, "Young Master Mo, are you selling all 9 inferior-grade profound martial techniques together?" "Haha. If we are not selling them together, why should I take them out?" Xiaochen smiled. "Isn't this nonsense?" Ziying's expression flickered as if she was making a decision. After a while she said, "Young Master Mo, the rarer something is, the more valuable it is. When there are many of them, they will not fetch a high price. If you auction all these inferior-grade profound martial techniques together, you will not be able to get the highest price. I have a suggestion. I wonder if young Master Mo will consider it." The other party was right. If 9 profound martial techniques appeared at the auction at once, the price would definitely be lower. If there was only one, it might fetch 4 or 5 times the market price, reaching 3 million black astral coins. Xiaochen did not know what Ziying's suggestion was. His expression did not change as he gestured for her to continue. "I think my 9 Cauldron Merchant Association should buy these 9 jade strips at a fixed price and not sell them during this 10,000 treasure festival. There are even larger sea fairs and auctions in Bright Moon City that our 9 Cauldron Merchant Association can handle." Not going through an auction meant that he would not have to wait for a long time. He could immediately obtain black astral coins from the 9 Cauldron Merchant Association. This was not bad. What price is the 9 Cauldron Merchant Association willing to pay? The market price of an inferior-grade profound martial technique is 1 million black astral coins. However, everyone knows that it is impossible to buy at this price. The 9 Cauldron Merchant Association is willing to pay 3 times the market price to buy all of them. Ziying smiled faintly and offered a price that Xiaochen could not resist. A single profound martial technique might fetch a sky-high price of 4 million black astral coins. However, if 9 appeared in a row, the price would definitely not be that high. Given this, Xiaochen would not lose out at all. Furthermore, he would not have to wait to obtain black astral coins. Deal. Ziying rejoiced in her heart. She said, "Good. Young Master Mo, please wait for one day. I will have to ask my father about such a large sum of black astral coins. Of course, don't worry. There will definitely not be any problems. I will give that damaged Emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon soul to young Master Mo as a gift." As Xiaochen watched Ziying disappear, Ao Jiao said from the Immortal Spirit Ring, "This 9 Cauldron Merchant Association is rather bold. It is a loss to buy them at such a price in the 10,000 Treasure Festival. However, they will definitely make a huge profit in Bright Moon City." Xiaochen smiled. The price of the 9 jade strips somewhat surpassed his expectations. Including the gift, they sold for a total of 30 million black astral coins. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.